And now the page before us blurs. An age is done. The book must close. We are abandoned to history. Raise high once more. Sorry. Raise high one more time the tattered standard of the fallen. See through the drifting smoke to the dark stains upon the fabric. This is the blood of our lives. This is the payment of our deeds. All soon to be forgotten. We were never what people could be. We were only what we were. Remember us.
Hello and welcome to Legendarium Green Team's Malazan series. Welcome to the final episode of the Crippled God and our final episode of these kind of book by book discussions. We'll have one more after this, just a general series talk, and then we might do more after that in the future sometime. But I am Hurinfan and I am joined today by Befuddled Panda,
Hello.
Janath,
Hi.
and Ashman.
Hello.
You know everything. So we're gonna cover the final part of the Crippled God. Are you all excited?
Yeah.
yes.
We should also say that we are getting one more into with Steve as well.
Yeah. We got a wrap up episode, an episode with Steve. I think Ash and I have talked to Philip Chase and hopefully AP as well about showing up. And I think if you guys have time, you should join us.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. Before we start, do you guys want to share anything? I know Ash might want to.
Ha ha. Yeah, Ash
Do you have
does
some
want to share.
news?
Ash finally has some big news, guys. Yes, I got engaged in Vancouver.
Woo!
Panda took
Ooh.
pictures.
We met in
We looked through the
person.
strings. Yeah, met up in person. It was great.
Oh
Park
wait,
was
we should
beautiful.
say we are not engaged.
No,
I
that's
met
true.
you and
That's what my
witnessed
wife
your
thought when I told
engagement.
her.
Now I am engaged to Lady Ash, my one and only love, besides Absalar.
It's a good thing she's not real.
I don't know. It's possible thruple stuff there, you
Wait,
know?
is it the Absalar that's not Absalar or the Absalar that is Absalar?
It's not Absalar. Yeah.
Okay.
Absalara, she has a thing for Nimander, and that's a huge turnoff for me.
It's
That's why I could never date Huron.
You're awful. Well, the Absalar who's actually Absalar is actually Absalara. That's how I
Yeah.
refer to them, at least.
That's true. But anyway, congratulations. It was lovely to meet the both of you, and I'm so happy for you.
It was
Yay.
not lovely not meeting the three of you.
Yeah. One day we'll make it out to Japan. Next year in Tokyo.
We should have had Ash go last, because how do you follow on from that? He's like, I got engaged, and I'm like, I'm going to the first con in my life.
Wait,
Never been
which
to a con
one?
Yeah,
before.
that's almost as exciting, yeah.
Which one?
Tantrum Con.
I don't know what that is.
It's like a board game convention that's in Charlotte, North Carolina every year. My
Hell
dad
yeah.
messaged me and was like, I'm getting you a name badge. They're non-transferable. So I was like, I guess I'm going to this convention.
That's awesome.
Whitney and Rain might go too. I'm gonna volunteer, so my ticket's free. So 12 hours working at a game library over the course of 4 days, and then the rest is my time.
Oh,
Hell
that's so
yeah.
cool.
That
That
sounds
sounds
really
awesome.
fun. Tantrum Con sounds more like a thing for toddlers and parents of toddlers. So.
I
It is
was
not.
thinking it'd be like a metal con, you know?
No,
There is
thank-
some
I don't think I could
table
handle a metal
flipping
con.
on their website, and it says, "Look forward to epic annual table flipping tournament." What is that?
I know that in board game culture, table flipping references if somebody is losing so bad that they get really angry at the game
Yeah.
and flip the table over, but I don't know
But
what
how do you
that
have a
translates into
tournament?
at a convention.
We need to
Okay.
play Tabletop Simulator and actually flip the table.
Yes. That is one of the features on Tabletop Simulator.
Yes.
Hilarious. I mean, maybe it's just like a really unbalanced tournament. You deliberately pair the worst, most unstable players with the best and see how long it takes the
No.
best players to force them into flipping the table.
Oh my god.
You have to take a personality test before you start. Well, shall we start? Unless Panda, do you have anything to share?
Well, my news is Ash's news. I gotta meet him, so.
My news, I feel like I should stand something.
Return to Adan is going to be reviewed soon.
Ah, yes. Read the Adan books because they're really good, and like they
Yeah.
just get better and better.
They need to be on audio because otherwise they're going to be behind War of Light and Shadow for me. So
I need to get
Yikes.
those too.
Is he doing audio?
he said Alan's from
Oh.
Library of Alexandria is doing them, but I'm like, when?
Oh.
I commented on that video like 2 days ago, and I'm like, "Is there any update on this?" He's like, "Alan's busy. It's still going. They're still recording.
Oh,
It's
I
coming
see.
soon, eventually."
Gotcha.
I'll read
Yeah,
them in a
Wars
minute.
of
There's an audiobook. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I highly recommend it. Wars of Light and Shadow is my next big fantasy read, I think.
Dandelion
Doing
Dynasty.
Sun Eater, I think. I need to get to that one too. I read the first book and I liked it. It's a really interesting style.
Yeah, I got like halfway through the first book, but I didn't stop like because it wasn't good. I just like didn't finish.
Because you went back to reading Malazan.
I have no idea honestly how it
I'm
like
just kidding.
I'm very easily diverted with reading if I'm not on a schedule. So I'm like, if it's not working for me and I rewind it like 5 times, I'm like, what else is in my library?
Let's start.
Let's start. This is going to be a long one. Chapter 21. Kalam and Quick Ben arrive to reinforce the host. The Fork will assail, prepare to meet their foes. Tehil sends his brother a care package. Tehil's letter, guys.
That was so funny. I loved it.
It not only was funny, it broke my heart because
Yes.
afterward when Briss was reflecting on it, he's like, "My brother's never told me he loved me. He thinks I'm gonna die." I was like, "Oh man, I love you too. Don't die." And then he didn't die.
He didn't die.
Thanks for that, Steve.
I was very surprised at the amount of characters that were not dead by the end of this.
Yeah, right?
I agree. Like it was a good amount.
Yeah, I thought Fiddler was for sure gonna bite it. But
Let's talk about that later.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, how did we all love Kalam and Quick Ben coming back? Eh? Wasn't that great?
That was
That was a
great.
good
It
moment.
was so
Yeah.
great. Yes.
Yes.
I like
Yeah.
when
I
Nala and Quickben's talking.
yeah. I miss that kind of banter. Like we get, the banter between the soldiers and stuff, but it's not like it's okay. Like I still love it, but like there's this other level between like Kalam and Fiddler, or sorry, Hedge and Fiddler, and then Quickbin and Kalam, where it's just like they have this deeper and more special relationship, and so their banter is just I don't know, it's just more.
Were you worried at all by Shadow Throne and the Crippled Gods discussion that ended on "You won't betray me, will you, Shadow Throne?"
Was I worried? I don't know. I guess I was just like, okay, the crippled god and Shadow Throne are making a deal, right? And
Mhm.
Erickson could. I acknowledged that Erickson could have taken a number of ways, but I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep reading to find out. Was I worried? Not really. I just wanted to know what was gonna happen.
Shadow Throne, secretly a good guy.
I'm not sure.
Worried. I was sad when I read that because it like I don't know. It showed how like vulnerable the crippled god was and how like all of his ploys had kind of exhausted themselves and all he had left to do was go along with Shadowthrone and Cotillion.
Mhm.
Absolutely, yeah. Because you could just feel like his fear and the tension there, and like I feel
Yeah.
tension because I don't really know what's gonna happen, and then I just feel terrible for the Crippled God because he's gone through so much.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, please don't, please don't, please don't.
Uh, and I also I know we'll talk about it more later because it's actually in a later chapter, but because you brought this up, I didn't I didn't correctly interpret Cotillion's actions in the last chapter the first time I read this, and I was very confused by them and was like, "What? Why would he do that?"
That
So
bastard.
yeah, I was like, "What?" And so that especially set up like by this was a little confusing for me.
Hmm.
Is this the chapter where Quickbin? This might have been in the last recording, or it might have been in this one. I forget. Where Quickbin talks about how he like uh is like not used to being subtle anymore.
Mhm.
Is that from this one?
It's probably this, I imagine.
This chapter has the one where he's like rubbing his face and taking on different parts of the, I guess, the souls inside of him,
Mhm.
and he's explaining different things to Piran. If that's part of the same scene.
Well, regardless of whether it's in the chapter or not, the him saying that he's like forgotten how to be subtle thing is like very reminiscent of kind of like why I really love Quickbin in the earlier books and like him less in these books, and at least like it's like even acknowledged in the book that there's been a change. Like so
He's been forced to actually use his magical muscles instead of just, being a squad mage.
right.
Yeah.
But some of his best moments are like when he's like using his wits a lot more and trying to be subtle. Like the stuff with Shadow Throne in books 1 and to a lesser extent book 6, and the stuff with Bacalane in book 3. Like those are
Yeah.
some of the best Quickfin moments in the series.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, Quickben's
Yeah.
really good in this last book.
I like him quite a bit in this last book. I like how Kalam chokes him out because you,
He's just
you
infuriating.
insane maniac. What the hell are you doing? Yeah.
I like his conversation with Perrin, and he's like, "Have you and Tavor been planning this along?" He's like, "No." It's like, and like they kind of give hints of like, "Oh, I'm the child of the Emperor." And finally, their conversation, I think, was with Kalam, and he's like, "Who is the toughest guy in the Bridge Burners?" Like, and he throws all these caveats, and he's like, "Throw this person out, throw this person out," and Kalam's like, "It's Fiddler. You didn't even it's Fiddler. I wasn't gonna pick anybody else. You know it's Fiddler. I know it's Fiddler. Everybody knows it's Fiddler."
Fiddler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not the most dangerous, not the smartest, but not the best leader, but definitely the toughest. Yeah. I quite like the scenes with the gray helms in these chapters. Um Especially like in here, Cetox tells Tenacalion, these wolves you guys worship, they have no clue what's going on there. They don't understand it at all. Your prayers, every one of the Grey Helm's prayers for like thousands of years has been essentially for nothing. They don't comprehend it. They can't do anything. They're not human. They're beasts. What do you expect? They're wolves. You're praying to literal wolves. You insane maniacs.
How do you
Just
feel about Talk?
I like her more this time. Yeah.
I thought she would
Yeah.
do more. So I mean she's fine, but I thought that she would be more she would impact the story more,
Hmm.
but ultimately like she was just a vessel for the wolf gods.
I think it's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Her impact of the story was dying and killing one of her gods from
Yeah.
Tanakalane. I found her interesting, and I felt her rage, and I was really excited reading again and seeing her in Reaper's Gale and be like, oh, "This is her." But yeah, okay.
Her arc makes a lot of sense to me. So I like her arc a lot more than I like Gruntle's. Or actually Mappo's in this book, because all of them, like their defining moment is essentially when they turn away from protecting the children, right? All of them,
I
they choose to
see.
turn their backs on humanity at that point, and then from then on, they're just kind of dealing with what that means, the implications of that, and none of them are okay after that. Um,
Okay,
I
that's a
would
good
and
point.
yeah,
Mappo's more okay than the others because he kind of views it like that, or I think it's Badal that says it, but that he turned his back on one set of children to so that he could save
to save
another.
another, but
Yeah,
like that moment broke him, and you know, he kind of goes out like a little wimp. Not a wimp. He goes out like a starving man dying of thirst against a demon god.
That was a bit disappointing, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like the Mappo ending was I just expected more.
And then yeah, and then Oblala just comes out with a mace bonk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It could have been a tad more heroic, but
But
Mappo
I
hasn't
guess
been heroic for a while.
okay, I guess I can bring it up now because it will be there's more to discuss like when we get into the last, chunk of the book, but was this whole ending satisfying? And I was really hoping that I would be able to answer with a resounding yes. But it's unfortunately it's not a resounding yes. But then I think about okay, why did Erikson choose to tell this story the way he did? Because when we think about when I think about other stories that I've read or seen, from movies or shows and stuff, there are these like very um tension building and like cathartic endings. And I was hoping that I would get that with this series, but it didn't end up being that way for me. And, with like Sea Talk and Mappo, and they're just like these storylines that kind of just fizzled out without big, like the big bangs that I wanted.
Without
Um,
the catharsis.
yeah,
Yeah, the catharsis is really contained to like the Malazans, pretty much. Like
Yeah.
there's catharsis in uh the sappers versus the Calancy, and them like taking out a bunch of the Grey Wolves by accident because their explosives are so powerful. Like that whole scene has some catharsis, and then there's catharsis at the Barrow, and then there's catharsis with when the regulars finally have to stand without the Marines and like all of that. But then like all the other side stuff that's not to do with the Malazans, it
and
does
I think
definitely fizzle out.
it's because the way that he weaves the story, right? Like, and these cathartic moments are not like really super explosive.
No.
They kind of like are flashes and then it's gone. And then you're back to the more mellow, like, I guess mellow is not the right word, but it's not a sustained like momentum of booms.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're left at the end kind of mostly exhausted, I think. Which
It's
I
actually kind
think
of
that's
weird.
deliberate, but
It's exhausted, but also nostalgic.
yeah, immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can talk about that when we get to the end. But anyway, so that that's kind of like just, you know,
Mhm.
my overall like feeling of how this series ended.
I think that well, and then there's a bit of catharsis also in like uh the Kamen Sod cotillion stuff, like with the crippled god seeing the soldiers and Carabas as well, like the way Carabas like volunteers to be chained at the end, and
Yeah,
the crippled god has to be like convinced to chain her, and his thoughts about the mortals who are like sacrificing themselves for him even though he's like a stranger to them basically. Mm.
I think it's there has been so much teasing, like it's a 10 book series and these are not short. And so I just wanted like a bigger way to end that made
Mhm.
me feel more. And even with these moments of like sacrifice and like, things that are supposed to get you in the heart didn't quite do that.
Honestly, Dust of Dreams did that more for me than this last one. And same with Reaper's Gale, and to maybe a lesser extent Toll the Hounds. But
Yeah.
I still think they all kind of beat this one out for all that, which is so weird because it's like the last book and you expect it to
Yeah.
hit harder, I guess.
Since listeners cannot see me, I will just say my eyebrows could not be any higher on my head.
This is
Um
all
uh,
blasphemy to Huron.
I will say that there was something that undercut it for me the first time that I was reading it as well. That's like probably unique, uh, and it's that like predicting the Crippled God would be released for 7 books and doing it on the basis of like of the discussions between Rake and Caladan Brood.
Uh-huh.
Like that set different expectations for like what that would actually look like than it looked like at all, which is
Interesting.
fine. I mean, I don't mind being surprised, but one thing about it that did undercut it, like I don't mind my expectations being defied, but there was like something to me like it just seemed like everybody in the House of Chains like act like horrible bad guys like for
Mm.
9 books, and then like they're all acting like really nice at the end. uh and I've heard explanations for why it makes sense and blah blah blah, but it kind of like feels like it's like sudden, and then like I'm like thinking like, well, but like shouldn't part of the point be that we should show them compassion even if they're still evil jerkbags at the end? But like, I get why he didn't do it that way because he wanted Cam and Sod to be like the viewpoint for the whole series, and that I like that. So I guess I couldn't have that
Mm,
and the other thing. But you know what I mean? Like, I have mixed feelings about it.
yeah, I understand, and I think, well, we can talk about it when we get to that scene at the end.
Yeah,
All
shall
right.
we talk about the rest of chapter 1 that we
What
chapter
happened
21
in
that we have
chapter
to talk about?
21 exactly?
Um, we got interactions between the Assail and various Grey Helms commanders. Um, you know, um,
I don't have much to say about that. The Assail continue to be pompous jerkbags, and I mean it's fun seeing them continually get their asses kicked and then being surprised and uh, dying from their own hubris. But it's been like that for a while.
Yeah.
um,
Well,
I
I
like.
there
Hmm.
sorry, there was one part where it kind of made a bit more sense to me why they, continue to have this arrogance other than like, oh, this is part of their personality, part of their DNA. um like the sheer number of people they have in their army, like the sheer
Hmm.
number of resources they have is intoxicating, right? Like, how could they lose? Like, they are so much more well resourced than their opponents. And that kind of power, especially when you're like able to use basically like mind control over like tens of thousands of souls, like that must be very intoxicating, that kind of power. So I can I can see a bit of why um they're still very
They also
arrogant.
have like a very cynical view of human nature that doesn't
True.
let them like imagine the kind of coalition in the motives behind the kind of coalition that could actually go
Yeah.
down. Like, so I
They
think there's
really
like a
do.
philosophical thing with it beyond just arrogance
They
that's like
really
fueling
do
the
lack
arrogance.
creativity. Like as a race, they're not very creative, you know?
They don't adapt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Do they
big part of
have
why they're
art?
mostly dead. Do they have art? Oh, that's a good question. I don't think we ever see Assail art. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because there's like
Hmm.
no, I don't think there's any mention of like crafts or, like having to use imagination really.
Yeah, they don't have any potsherds lying around their dead ever. And I don't think they're part of Icarium City, right? Um, yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. And they're usually naked. Like they don't have any kind of fashion associated with them.
Or humor.
Or humor.
Yeah.
Yeah, tyrants can't laugh at themselves. Have we learned that from Reaper's Gale?
Well, the one guy really gets into Gothos's folly.
Oh
He
yeah,
start, yeah,
that's true.
I liked him.
he's like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then, and then
You
the
need
other
to
peers
burn
like,
it.
stop that. Burn all those books.
So you know what? Okay, let's talk about that for a moment. So I posit that the Forkro Assail race could evolve to become more creative and like could actually eventually live in peace with potentially live in peace with all these other races, um based on just that one example of, hey, somebody reading Gotham's Folly and like actually finding it interesting and not just dismissing it right out of hand, but because of their leadership, like they're not given that kind of thinking is not given an opportunity to grow
Uh,
and flower.
Also consider the Pure that Hood killed by eating her face. She was trying to create an alliance of some sort.
Oh,
She
yes.
was, but along like the very straight lines of the Assail, like, okay, we're still going to kill most people, but we can have a small breeding population for
Sure,
balance
I'm just saying
purposes.
that we're given a lot more diversity than you might be
There is
thinking.
diversity within their ranks. Yeah, that's true.
I
But
would argue there is one example of Assail art in this book.
Yeah.
It's the taxidermy of the rulers who kept um the like taxidermy chamber. Like they added to the collection by taxidermying the hunter ruler.
I guess that could count.
Oh, I
It's an
totally
I
art
would be.
completely rooted in their ideology, right? But that's like that is essentially like they didn't have to do that, but they elevated justice to an art expression in that moment, you know? Like it's
Yeah.
I guess.
Like, I'll give you the most
I like it.
tepid yes that I can. Um, and also add like the the words they use. It could also qualify as a kind of art, but like this is just for purposes of domination, for overawing other people, for
Yeah.
you know making their yeah yeah, I guess it's
it's
art.
very narrow. I'm not
It's
saying
very
Yeah.
it's like
narrow. Yeah, it's very authoritarian. It's
I think they
yeah,
all
I
just
guess
need hugs and they need a vacation, and just like a good
hugs.
massage, maybe a soak in the hot tub to just like relax. I
Can
think
you
that's what
imagine massaging someone with like a hinged chest and 20 elbows?
somebody go write fanfic about that.
oof.
Somebody made of bones and elbows were a person.
Hmm.
Back to the message from Tail. I was just thinking about the guy who came and was talking to Abrastal, and he's like, "Yeah, King Tail put my family, but they punished my family, and now I have to serve." She's like, "As somebody in a position of power, I find that very offensive." He's like, "I think that was the point."
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
But
so unfair. Yeah, Devil has lots to say about unfairness.
Uh-huh.
he
Um
gave us a long lecture about that.
yeah. That's that's Tahol definitely shows like a sort of revolutionary egalitarianism with that stuff, like forcing the Rentier class into community service. It's awesome.
I love that. I
This
love that whole
is
scene.
this is just a perfect encapsulation of why Tehol is my favorite of the genius characters in Malazan, because he's just the most real, right? He just gets the most feels from me.
I think
It's
the
just
other
nice
thing
being.
is oh, go ahead.
It's nice having a very kind, smart, uh, compassionate guy actually in a position of power doing good. And it's just
Right.
nice to read that sometimes.
He just tries. He tries. And like
While also having a personality and just
yeah,
being
yeah, he
nice.
has a personality. Um, and he's not like willfully delusional like Krupp is often.
I don't I think that's a mask Krupp wears.
Well, I was reading a comment Steve made about Krupp. He's like he's the character that loves the world of Malazan the most. He loves it to the point of delusion in a lot of cases.
So me?
Um, and I think that tracks. Yeah, yeah, you
I was kind of surprised that Krupp didn't have more
didn't pop up.
and
No, why
yeah.
would he? He's busy eating sweetmeats and not caring.
I mean, the whole thing with him and like Krull and like time
Yeah,
space continuum or whatever and him being
this
like
is
the point of view or storyteller person from a previous
Uh,
book.
uh, uh, this is why I kind of get peeved when I see him in Memories of Ice being like, "I shall be the one to stand against the crippled god," and he doesn't. He's not the guy. Other people are the guys. Um, but yeah, he does play his part, sort of.
I agree with that. Yeah. No eyebrow raising here.
I mean, you know, sometimes Erickson forgets characters or plots or whatever, but I would highly doubt that he forgot about Krupp by this point at this point.
Yeah, Krupp
I
shows
agree.
up in this book. Krupp gives Torrent a bow with which Torrent can use to sacrifice himself to protect Krupp's children. Thank you, Krupp.
We can ask him about it.
I think we should.
Yeah. Shall we move on to chapter 22?
Does Krebs show up in Witness?
Not so far.
Yeah. I mean, like, Karst hasn't showed up in Witness, so.
I imagine he'll probably be in book 3.
Yeah. We'll see. Chapter 22. Draconis kills Kilmandaros. The host obliterates another Assail army. Silchus and Tulas fly to the aid of Korobos. I like Silchus a lot. I like Silchus and Tulas a lot. I like Silchus and Tulas a lot more than I like Silchus and Rudalal.
We get it.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Is chapter 21 the one where um Kalam Kalam goes and kills that pure, right? And then like
In the camp? Yeah.
yeah, I think
Well,
we
it's
have
one of
to
the
Oh,
watch
ones
and,
where
that.
he kills
and
the
the
bear.
demon from House of Change shows up, which
I think we
was
have to talk
such
about
a
that,
deep
okay?
take. That was
Okay,
such
yeah,
a like
yeah.
deep cut.
I fully forgot about that.
It's a
Yeah.
pretty long chapter, but anyway,
Yeah, what do you want to
Um,
talk about?
Janath.
if it wasn't for the wiki, I still would have missed who that demon was the second time. I was just like, okay, I haven't figured this out yet. I have to know. House of Chains is one of the only books I haven't read twice though, so that might be part of it. But
Mm.
I like completely forgot, and now I remember you guys teasing us about the demon in House of Chains and like what it
Is
would
he
be.
gonna show up again? Who knows?
Yeah.
Why did that
There he
demon not kill
goes.
you? I don't know. I saved his life a while ago. It's been a while.
He said that, and I was thinking of Dead House Gates, and I was like, "What?" And I had to look it up.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's that demon."
Okay, because I was also trying to figure out. Wait, what did Kalam do? How did he save this
So
demon?
there's a demon in the body of a Toblakai at the bottom of a well, poisoning the well in House of Chains. And like Kalam goes into the fortress, and they're like, "Yeah, kindly," and somebody else like went down there before and
Oh
tried to
my
deal with it,
god!
and like Kalam goes down there and the ends up letting the demon out, and the way the
Oh,
demon gets out is like it
okay.
like seeps out into the river,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
Carl drinks from the river and is
Right.
possessed, and then the young Carl tries to kill Kalam and doesn't, and then it just showed up like that
Oh
on
my
Carl.
god!
Uh,
Wow.
Totally out of left field.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we should have gotten the demon farmers this book.
I think we should have gotten Circle Breaker arriving on a ship and be like, I have
oh, that would have
arrived
been
to save the
awesome.
day.
Um, I think maybe the point of that is like you never know,
You never
like
know.
the fruits of your compassion, like karma. Karma is real.
Plum gets his ass saved more than any other character in the series. It's hilarious.
yes.
That's true.
This probably kills more than any other character in the
He does
series.
a lot.
Well, Tayshrin and Animander during the Battle of Pale alone probably kill more than he does.
Yeah, but you know
Eh,
what? Kalam's killings, we get close-ups. Like it's
That's
much more
true.
intimate.
Kalam has to trade spit with the people he kills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed this scene. Like I really enjoyed this chapter. So like with, Piran like planning out with Quick Ben and Kalam a way to basically demoralize and kind of disorganize the Furcorosail and their forces. And it's just
Mhm.
like, people who haven't really fought with Piran and like the old Malazans before. It's just like, how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna do this? So there's all this doubt, and then like the Furcorosail's like, there's no way they're gonna be able to, make it out of there without us seeing, and da 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 da. It's just so cool the way
Yeah.
that the whole thing played out.
The classic Malazan warfare one last time.
It's just
yeah.
you get so many POVs of, I think I said this earlier, the Assail just being arrogant pricks and then getting their ass kicked. And you'd think you'd get tired of it, but you don't.
I mean, definitely not here. I think it's also because it's not really the same kind of tactics over and over again.
Mhm.
It's like there's variety, right?
It's
And
and here out of left field comes another thing that they couldn't possibly have thought of.
yeah. Well, and the part where there's just like this big hole that swallows up the pure, and then they throw in like
And
basically
they
what
just
is
throw in a
that?
burner, yeah.
Yeah.
How
Oh,
do you prepare
that's
for
so
that?
cool.
How do you prepare for the Worm of Autumn tunneling through the entire Earth to come in and foil your plans specifically?
Yeah.
Rex the MVP.
Ah.
Um, is is it next chapter or this chapter where you have the meeting where Piran's like talking to the sappers and they're all dead silent?
That's next one.
That's
Or the
chapter
next one.
23, the one that we haven't gotten to yet. Wait, that
Okay,
is it
23.
chapter
It's
no,
not this one.
it is chapter 22. It is chapter 22. The one that we were on but went back to chapter 21. Are we going back to chapter 22 now?
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine. Okay, we are going back. Okay. Yes, this is this chapter. Go ahead.
Sappers, go.
Sappers.
Okay, that was an amazing scene, and it really reminded me of Dead House Gates and Reaper Scale.
Yeah.
with the sappers and their like whole religion based around explosives.
I never get tired of the sappers. I think it's
Is
because
that
he
man
uses them
crying?
sparingly.
Yeah. He used them sparingly. Like, they die so quickly.
And yeah, Piran just being confused and like the
I
reader knows, but Piran doesn't really
Yeah.
know.
I hid away all of the most powerful explosives for later. I don't think I can trust them with these ones.
And then you find out a scene later that they are torturing more what were their names?
Mulligan and Gumbel.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah,
artist and the
to get the
toad.
locations. Yeah.
Oh, that whole
Um,
interaction was great. And it's like,
bless you, sir.
Gormalon or whoever was the one that suggested torching the toad.
Or Mulligan, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's so
god.
funny.
I like how they blowed their entire wad on this army and just have nothing left for the next one, you know? They go, like,
Here's the thing.
so overboard.
You there are different ways to attack. One is you have a lot of confidence that you're gonna win this battle, and so you budget just the right amount of ammunition and resources to use. And sometimes you
Mhm.
just like, hell, we don't know if we're gonna survive. Let's just give them all we got, you know?
Blast them. Yeah. Steve does address this directly in one of the books. It was like, I think it was Dusted Dreams or maybe Reaper's Gale. It's just like, yeah, you'd be tempted to hold back these explosives and try and ration them very carefully, but it's actually more effective if you just like really blow up your enemy the first chance you get.
I think Piran tried, but sappers being sappers.
He tried so hard, yeah. I love Piran in these chapters. Like, Ganos, what a mensch. What a cool guy. He's he's fully evolved into a functioning adult, and I'm so proud of him.
This is also the chapter where we find out what the Hust sword with the dragons on it is about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right? I fully missed that the first time.
Okay.
Didn't catch it. Like who those dragons were that popped up. Like I didn't make any of the connections. I was just
Oh.
like blazing
Oh, I didn't
through so
either.
fast trying to get to the end.
Oh, 3 dragons. Wow, that's cool.
Oh, you're talking about when Silchus Ruin takes out unsheaths the sword instead
Yeah,
of
and the
like yeah.
Oh, when he frees the dragons that Cotillion was
Yeah, yeah,
talking
yeah,
with
yeah.
a few books back.
That's yeah. That is that this chapter anyway, whatever.
It
That
counts.
was
It's
so
Anapalas.
cool.
It's yeah,
Makra.
Makra. Yeah.
I there were definitely a few moments in this last whatever third quarter of the book that I was just like, "Oh my god, this is so cool." And that was one of them. And then there was also Telerast and what's Curdle
Curdle.
getting
Yeah.
caught up in it too, and they were trying to run away.
I hope they made it out all right.
I hope they
Eh.
didn't.
You hope they didn't?
I don't like
Oh,
Dolores and Girdle. I mean, they're
you
kind of
don't?
evil.
I mean, yeah, but they're
They're
fun
fun
evil.
though.
They are funny,
Yeah.
and like I like them, like in that sense. But they're also evil. So don't.
I mean, what do they do that's evil? They don't even kill anybody in this entire series.
They kill one group of people in Reaper's Gale.
Oh yeah, with the Beneshjar.
There's like an inn, and they're like forced to veer when they're there, and they
Yeah.
like
Oh man, I
It's when
admire
they were
you
making a deal
remembering
with
these
Beneshjar.
things.
And they backstab everybody, and they're dragons, and they're just kind of chaotic.
They don't even
anyway.
backstab anybody this time. Like,
They
they're
try to, and then people make
Yeah.
references to all the evil stuff they did.
Listen, that's all hearsay. We don't.
Okay, they're fun characters. Is that what you want me to say? They're fun.
I will believe that they're evil when I see it, and when I see them doing an evil deed, rather than just hearing people gossip about them.
I see.
Oh, Kilmandros goes out like a bitch. I approve.
That was awesome. Thank you, Draconis.
Yeah. I think he kills Setchaleth. I don't know. Does he kill Setchaleth?
See that threw me for a loop, right? Because it looks like Setchaleth is dead, and then come his kids, and they're like, when he gets up again, we're gonna be in trouble. I'm like, well, what? If he gets up again, I thought he was dead. But then, yeah, it's complicated.
And we never see the errant again.
Yeah, we never find out if
Erasmus is
Draconis gets
gone.
the errant. I feel like the kid in The Princess Bride, and I'm like, who gets Humperdinck? At the end. Everybody's got
No one gets Humperdinck. Sorry, he gets away.
That's actually a really good analogy.
That is a really good analogy. Yeah. Good question. And characters keep saying like, "Oh, I sure hope an errant arrow doesn't kill me."
Uh-huh.
And I guess the errant is fully hiding away from Draconis at this point because no errant arrows get anybody except for Ola or Ethel and some of the unimportant characters.
That wasn't really an errant arrow, though. He kind of aimed it
It
exactly
was an
where.
it was an implausible arrow.
He got that talk magic.
Hawkman, yeah, right. Like just impossible bow shots. That is Talk's thing.
Did we get an ending to the whole, besides her dying, to the whole like her kidnapping Tool's kids thing?
No.
No.
Well,
So we don't know
sort
what
of.
happened to them.
Torrent was just like his realization was like, oh, she loves him and wants
That
to
was weird.
have sex.
But are the
And
kids just dead now, or
no,
did
no,
they
no,
find
no,
them
no,
dead?
no,
They were
no.
reunited.
Tool gets the kids back and Hatan.
Right, that's what I just asked.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait,
They were all
yeah.
reunited.
That's in the epilogue. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought I remembered that from the first read, but I didn't catch it on this read. So it's just like, what happened to them?
Yeah. Reread the first couple paragraphs of epilogue 1.
Okay.
Stavi and Story are just having a good time. Udanos is there. He's like, "Oh, these old bones of mine." Should we go to chapter 23?
Wait, before we do that, this is the part. Chapter 22 is where like the parish become basically irrelevant.
Yeah.
in
No,
this
no,
whole
that's
thing,
chapter
right?
23.
There's two groups of parish. This is where the naval section becomes irrelevant because they were
Oh,
like
right. Okay, so there
supposed to
was
be
this whole
spared.
this
Yeah.
whole thing from like Kalam and like the Malazans where it's like don't kill the parish. Like you can kill everybody else, but don't touch the parish. And then
But they got him anyway because the explosives were bigger than they expected.
Yeah.
So like they scared the crap out of them and like deafened the leader, and like a bunch of them like were like, in shambles basically. I don't know how many of them died, but they were
Quite a
like
few, and
they were shook up by the explosions for sure.
right.
And
But there
like
were
they
still
just like
some that
had
were
to accept
left.
surrender. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
they
then
accepted surrender. They were demoralized, and Kalam just like made surrender acceptable by being like, "Hey, in the end, nature's gonna win anyway, and this is the
right.
future of warfare, and you need to
Humans
stop.
gonna kill each other.
Go home."
Get over it.
Yeah. No one's as good at killing humans as we are.
Which that one
Yeah.
that to me like with basically it was like a missile, right? That they launched the red whatever tail
Yeah. The red
explosives,
bolts. I think it
the
was.
red
Yeah.
bolts. And I just had images of, World War II and nuclear bombs in my mind. It's like, oh goodness, I guess this is the next age of warfare.
I love Witness. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, the God is not willing is good. It's good for this. I realize I totally forgot the one quote that I have from this book. I'm dragging us back all the way to chapter 21 again. We're never gonna move on from that. Shadow Throne. Listen, I wasn't always this old, you know. In any case, every time we end up in the same room, I can see the disappointment in her eyes. He's talking about his mom. And hear in her voice, Emperor? Oh, that empire. So now you're a god. Oh dear, not Shadow. Isn't it broken? Why did you have to pick a broken realm to rule when your father was your age? Ah, and on it goes. I've been on the run since I was 9 years old, and is it any wonder?
So that line, "I wasn't always this old, you know," it makes me wonder, and I know we're not going to talk about this too much. I'll get yelled at. But it does make me wonder if Steve knew what Cam was going to do in the prequel uh trilogy with Wu,
I
with
think
his
so.
character.
I think so.
Yeah. It was good line. Good Easter egg.
I love the idea that first of all his mother is still alive. He goes to visit her. And like who was his dad? Like yeah, like the town Thatcher? I don't know. What did he do that's so impressive?
I think it's just a story.
I think his mom is that much of a hard ass, and his dad didn't do anything special in his entire life. But they're Dalvanese, so it's a cultural thing.
I think that there's a lot. Uh, I believe that his mother would still be alive, but that's based on knowledge I should not have at the time that this book was published. So
Um,
Interesting.
I was gonna say Dalvanese people. I don't know. Yeah, whatever.
it's a good quote. I really liked
It
all
is
the
a good
Shadow
quote.
Throne stuff in this book.
Yes, the idea that Shadow Throne this entire time is just like trying to live up to his mom's expectations of him. Everything he's done in this entire life.
He has
It's just
mommy
like,
issues.
please, will this impress you now? No! Put some work into this, you silly boy.
But of course, like we can extrapolate based on relationships throughout the series that um the way that relationships in the series work is that she's proud of him the entire time and just keeps doing that so he'll keep striving to do more. I mean, we don't know that, but that's what I choose to believe.
That's a very white-pilled headcanon.
I would like a short story of Shadowthrone visiting his mother. Thank you.
That's an excellent idea.
I like
Maybe
it.
We should
after
pick,
this, so that he can be like, "Well, Mom, I released the crippled
Yeah.
god and freed Byrne from the poison in her
I
blah
saved
blah
the
blah." And
world,
like,
man.
did I saved the world and changed the nature of magic as we know it? She'd be like, "That's all you did."
And your father was your
yeah.
age.
Yeah, we should pitch Steve to write like a microfiction. Shadow Throne and his mom.
Yeah.
Speaking of Dalhanese, my favorite Dalhanese was mostly missing from this book. Malazan Jelani.
Yeah, where is
She
she?
doesn't really get much. She
She
gets like
showed
a
up a little
couple
bit.
lines in these.
A
But
little.
Yeah.
yeah, what happens to her? Who knows? Does she just die off screen?
No, I don't think so.
There's 20 Marines left at the end.
They
There's
they
still
they,
enough
they
time.
could have filled. I think they could have filled a lake in the glass desert with thirst for Malazan Jelani.
Absolutely. Or the people who thirst from Basan Jelani could have drunk that entire lake and still
Been
had
thirsty.
more left over. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Or just
Dude.
like the readers.
Very meta.
Very meta.
So chapter
Yeah.
23?
Chapter 23. I
No, go ahead.
guess. Are you sure you don't want to just talk about Masan Gilani's ass for the rest of the episode?
Have you guys ever watched Carmen?
No.
The opera?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, Masan Jelani and Carmen have a lot in common. You should watch the 1984 version.
Interesting. When you said Carmen, I was thinking Carmen Sandiego.
That is actually
Highbrow.
the first thing that I thought of when my wife brought this opera up to me. I am not highbrow enough to watch opera if it wasn't for my wife, just to be clear.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm definitely not highbrow enough for it. I stick to theater, and that's
23?
yeah, let's go to chapter 23. Chapter 23. The Greyhelms undergo more religious upheaval. Torrent kills Olar Ethel. Allied forces of Jagat, Kachain Shamal, Imas, Teblor, and humans rescue the heart of the crippled god.
This is the chapter that went on for a long time. Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very long.
Quite
Yeah.
long. Chapter 24 is also quite long.
It's
Okay.
a little bit longer.
Oh, yeah.
I know y'all weren't satisfied, but I was really satisfied by the end of the Greyhelms. And I loved Tentakalin killing his own god. And Sea Talk, well, the end of Sea Talk wasn't all that satisfying. I liked seeing how it ended and finding a middle road between not killing the parish, but them still having to find a middle road, if that makes sense.
I really like all of this actually. I like the way Sea Talk. Well, I don't like that she goes out like this. I think it's very fitting that she goes out like this.
Yeah,
Because
it made me think of like the end of a Shakespeare tragedy.
yeah,
Like the
I agree.
incestuous violence of the leaders at the top against each other.
Mhm.
I also thought it was really cool the way Krukava was so self-aware of like her heroism worship,
Mhm.
like of it being the only religion that she ever really knew and blah blah blah. And then she like still just like does the whole tragic hero death. Like
Grogov is a Bamf. Tentakalin
yeah.
gets his stupid face faced.
Well, yeah, and like they never should have worshipped the wolves in the first place. Right? I think that's essentially the thesis. Like these gods are not worthy of the worship they got, and these people's internecine conflicts just ruined what could have been like a cohesive community. And Talk, like she's like, oh yes, I'm the voice of the wolves. They speak through me. But she realizes because she's the human and she's not the wolves. Like she realized, oh, what Krukava says makes perfect sense. But the wolves themselves can't understand this. And they're just driven mad by the audacity of Krukava. And I think that's a very fitting end for all of them. I just kind of wonder what happened to the last wolf.
Yeah, which one died?
I don't know. It's not clear.
It's never made clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like the Grey Shields a lot more than the Grey Helms.
The Grey Swords?
The Grey Swords, is that what they're called? The
Yep.
ones from Memories of Ice? Yeah, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I like their culture a lot more, and they seem to like have it figured out a bit more. And it's kind of sad that they
They've
got
been around a lot longer, right?
Yeah, but it's kind of sad they
Well,
got picked up by the wolves at the end of Memories of Ice, because like that means that this is the religion they got kind of saddled with after they like did such a good job before.
Well, yeah, there've always been worshippers of Tog and Fandrai, right? But like as Tog and Fandrai rose to the Beast Throne, they gathered a lot more power and probably a bigger organization, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, the only reason the Grey Swords got picked up by them is because of Fenrir being pulled down.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Fenrir's awesome. And Fenrir's the best. He's just better than Tog and Fandrai. I want to see him fight.
I like that's
And
the
better than Drake. Drake sucks.
Drake sucks.
Well,
Fenrir's our
that's
god.
that's what we're told over like 7 books. Like, okay, first of all, gods of war are stupid. Second of all, wolves are stupid. Why should you have them as your god? Third of all, this tiger guy doesn't know what he's doing at all. He picked Gruntle.
Fenrir's
Horrible
always been a
mistake.
good guy.
And Fenrir's just like he's just kind of like the really old, tired guy. He's kind of wise though, but like he didn't want to be god of war either. Gods of war make no sense.
You know,
As we
okay.
established in this.
Now that you guys lay it out like this, it makes sense. Gessler and Stormy, like the way that they their relationship is with their god, and the way that they end is so much more satisfying than Gruntle and Sea Talk.
Yeah,
And
I think that's also deliberate, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it is interesting though. Like with Sea Talk, she was holding on to onto her humanity, but she wasn't able to fight. She wasn't strong enough to fight against the gods taking her over. Whereas like Gruntle and Stormy, like they have been fighting a lot longer and harder to keep their humanity. I don't know if it's because like they.
It probably has
The,
more to do with her being the Destriant. Like
okay.
literally, like they look through her eyes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would say that Seatalk deliberately turned her back on humanity, like in this book after they gave up the kids to Olareth. It's just like this is horrible, and with the ghost wolves inside her, and then at like the very last instant, she was like, "Oh, I made a horrible mistake."
I see.
But it was too late for her at that point.
I think Gessler and Stormy are the reason why they want to hold on to their humanity is like ideological. Like they think ascendants are jerks, and
they think that anyone in authority is a jerk.
Yeah, but they seem to particularly not want to become ascendants.
Yes, because those are the biggest jerks. Yeah.
Right.
The more authority you accumulate, the bigger of a jerk you necessarily have to be. They're just like, I hate that.
And they ride this line the whole series because they're relying on their like awakening ascendant powers to get them through a lot of these situations that they're in.
Yeah.
And at the very end, the only reason that they survive as long as they do is because of what happens in Dead House Gates that like sets them on the path to ascendancy. So like they're straddling it the whole dang time. And if they didn't die, I don't know how long they could have held out.
Yeah.
Careful about mentioning paths to ascendancy.
But isn't it so satisfying that though these guys who have been trying so hard to fight this. One of them dies by saving their dog.
Yeah,
That's incredible to me.
That was so touching. I love
it
that.
was. And also, Bent and Roach are the real heroes of the series, not Gessler and Stormy. But like it's so crazy what these dogs have been through. Like when you look at the whole story from like the like Bent adopting Roach up to the fire, it's like just wild everything they've gone through and all the continents they visited, every battlefield they've been on. It's so insane.
Didn't
That's
Roach bite Hood's foot too?
Yep.
the
And then pissed on it.
At the end, he pissed at the
Yeah.
end.
Yes.
But yeah,
the
on the way to the
spire.
spire, yeah, he
The,
bites him
the
and
the
then kicks
spire,
it.
that whole part was like really exciting, and like that's what I thought the rest of the ending was going to be more like. Um, I do have one qualm though. So we see like all of this fighting, and it's like, oh my goodness, there's so many more enemy forces, and even well, actually, there's so much to talk about here. Fenner getting killed by Karsa
Mhm.
and raining blood, and then basically resuscitating like all the Talanamas, which
And Jack
everybody
Hut.
points out,
And Hood and
and
yeah,
Hood,
And the heart of the
and the
crippled god.
Jackhood,
and
like
yeah,
everybody
in the
pointing
Heart of the
out
Crippled
like, hey, this was bad timing, which
What a
just
great
calls
line.
Yeah. No kidding.
calls back to memories of ice,
I
like
know.
my
I thought
frustration.
of
Yep.
I thought
Yep.
of
Yep. Yep.
Panda when they said that, and I thought of how like deliberate the reference to like the reader criticism of bad timing was, and I was like thinking about like how like for most readers it's never gonna sit well with them during Memories of Ice when it happens, and I think that it's like deliberately much smoother and less hard on the readers when it happens in this chapter.
It is less hard. But okay, so that was a little frustrating. But the part that really got me frustrated was, they were all like, "Oh my goodness, we're not gonna make it," and this is before Sin, becomes all
Ugh.
nuclear, basically. Um, and then they're like, "Oh, look over there on the horizon," and it's like, "Oh, it's all the ghost Malazan, the bridge burners." Like Whiskey Jack leading this army, and they're like gonna ride through and like help save them. I was so excited. I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is gonna
Oh,
be amazing." And then nothing. It didn't happen.
Oh, it happened. Yeah.
It just didn't go into
No.
like huge
So,
detail.
let me explain the later distribution of the battle. So there's the fight
Okay.
around the spire itself, where
Yeah.
the Kachane Shamal and the Eye Master are fighting, and then there is a relief force being sent in from the battle with the Letheri. So the relief
Okay.
force is then intercepted by Kel Hunters and the Emas, and those Emas are also joined by the Jaghead
Right.
and then the
That part I
Tubler.
got.
And then the bridge burners come in and help them deal with the relief
Yeah.
force. So the
We don't
around the
see that.
spire, we don't see it. Okay, yes.
Right? Like
Yeah,
it is
That's true.
not. He teased
No.
it, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be glorious," and then cut away. And in fact, it was Gessler was like, "Tell them to not come over here," right? Like because of the fire, like they would get burned to a crisp,
Hmm.
and that was it. And then I was like, "Wait, so you set up this like really awesome moment, and then I don't get to see it?"
That's fair
I think
enough,
like
right?
yeah, I think that that at that point it was like, well, that solves this part of the battle. So like cut away. Like we know the way the wind's blowing. We don't need to see the end of this anymore because
It wasn't
we
okay.
yeah.
I'll be clear. Like, it was not clear to me, like what exactly happened. It was
Hmm.
like the bridge burners are charging, and then Guess is like, tell them to go away. Don't come over here. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? So, and then we don't get anything from the bridge burners until like the very end. Um,
you wanted some lines along the lines of, and Whiskey Jack knocked off his head.
yeah. Where's their action?
I think we could have spared 2 paragraphs from the Tragal Trade Guild sections to add them into here instead.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think Steve doesn't like to linger on moments of climax for some unknown
I don't
reason.
know. That's what
Like
I
just
want.
a little bit, right? A little bit of triumph.
What a missed
Yeah, all the
opportunity.
triumph is saved for Hood and Gessler and Benton Roach at the top of the
Which
spire.
I mean,
Basically,
Yeah.
he was he really on a page limit here? Like a word count limit here?
Yeah.
I was
It
thinking
was
that. I was waiting
strict.
for you to
He
say
only
that.
saved what he needed to save.
But that being said, I get it. Actually, no, I don't get it, and I want to ask him about it. I want that scene, please.
Mhm.
He can retroactively put it in a new edition of this book, and I will
Make it
buy it.
even bigger.
Yeah.
Um, I so to provide a little bit of context for his decision, like at this point, I think he was getting pretty tired of writing battle scenes. In Fall of Light, he deliberately like avoids writing a battle. He like just does a metaphor for the battle instead, because and he
Ooh.
said this to us. He's like, I didn't want to write another goddamn battle scene. Basically, it's so exhausting for him. So I think he was probably feeling a little, yeah. I think he was probably feeling a little burnt out on them at this point, and didn't want to have just like, I don't think he wanted
Because
to like
when he
glory in what was happening, basically.
Because well, when he writes the battle scenes, he doesn't just write a battle scene. He like plans it all out on wargaming like computer programs or on tabletops with minis and stuff with the terrain and everything. Like it's like a huge process of like of like planning the entire thing out. It's not just like he doesn't just sit down and write, you know. It's
Okay,
like
that's
this
fine.
this big
I get
thing.
that. Which it does explain, like, how much more realistic his like strategy and battle planning feels. Um, but he didn't need to do any more of that kind of strategizing. He already set it up. Like they are coming to save. Like he could have just, even if he didn't want to write detailed battles and fighting, like some sort of acknowledgement from the people that are getting saved, right? Or like, oh my goodness, the Calancy looked in horror as like this, you know, army is riding towards them. Like something like that. Fine. I would take that. But we were left hanging. At least I felt like I was left hanging.
I for me it was just like, yeah, like okay, the cavalry charge wins this. I think, yeah, pretty clearly. So it wasn't a big problem for me. The problem, if in terms of, like the battle things that happened, was with Spax and the Bargast. Because they like climb the ridge and then they immediately get beaten and they go go down, or
Oh
like they
yeah.
run away or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, he could have given us like a little bit.
That's
A
when we learn he's
little
going
bit
to
of
be a
space.
daddy.
That
Yeah.
the treatment of Spax and the Bargast, I think, hits me worse than the treatment of the Bridge Burners here because they set it up that
Hmm.
the
Mm.
Bargast have like this culture and they're like coming home on this holy
Yep.
crusade, and their whole reason why they wear their stupid turtle armor and paint their face white is to like imitate the Fork Roll of Sail. So
Which is
like
set up from Memories of Ice, by the way.
you need at least one scene where they beat the crap out of some Fork Roll Assail. And
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
like it just didn't happen. Like that
And
is
the
worth
assail
to me.
yeah.
The Bridge Burners had Memories of Ice.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
And they have done cool things since then as dead guys. But like Spax and the Bargast were set up so much, and there's just
Yes.
nothing. Like
And
it's
the assail are even like, oh yes, one of our ancient enemies,
right.
these Gilk Bargast.
Yeah.
I
Like
think that's
it's
a really good
so
point. I never
ominous.
considered that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so
Yeah,
unfortunate.
because the whole thing was like they were so ready to fight, you know? Which
Yeah.
it was kind of like funny where the Teblers, right? Is it the Teblers that show up?
I love the Templar.
And they're like just outrunning all the Bargas, and the Bargas are like, okay, we're out of shape.
So and so, who is
Yeah.
chosen for being the most beautiful? I am the most beautiful. You must listen to me.
That was pretty funny.
Very
Anyway.
much Death by Snoo Snoo vibes out of that one.
Yeah, every single like Templar scene was I loved it this time.
Yeah.
Can we talk
Yeah.
about Briss? Because that was really satisfying to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That was great.
And Ambi Bowl, come on, he's savior.
Okay, so it was great, but there's a there's a phrase that I employ sometimes about things like this, and specifically in relation to the Trigal Trade Guild characters. Like that scene was great, but it was a whole lot of sugar for a nickel because of how many boring scenes with the Trigal Trade Guild we had to endure to get them to where they had to be to have this one satisfying scene. And I'm like, could you have rewritten this to have anybody else be in this scene besides the Trigal Trade Guild and just cut all of that?
I just kind of wish Precious Thimble had had a moment, had a moment. You know, like a good moment for Precious Thimble. She's kind of just pathetic in this book. Faint has a good scene, I think, here.
Yeah.
And Precious Thimble, I guess she's like, I tricked the stupid man into going in there. But
Okay,
yeah, it could have been better.
I agree that the Trigal sections in this book particularly were not my favorite, but before here they were very exciting in my opinion. Like they go through Hood's Warren, they meet Cartographer. Cartographer's fantastic.
No,
Like
no, no.
everything in Toll the Hounds and all that was
I'm not
great.
saying that
Everything in
those
Toll the
scenes
Hounds.
should be cut. I'm saying that like continuing them from the point where all of those things had already happened up to this point. That's what I'm talking about. It's like all their scenes were kind of eh. I mean, their one scene where they first meet the Lotharii, I guess, is pretty good. But for, like, there's a lot of fat there that like
Yeah.
you know, like the satisfying thing about this scene for me is Bryce and
Eneric.
Erinict. Yes, couldn't think of how to make those consonants arranged properly. Their stuff is why I cared about this scene, and the Trigal Trade Guild were just like kind of there to make the scene I needed to happen with Erinict and Bryce happen. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I do know what you mean, and I care a lot more about Erinict and Briss than I do about Ambi Bowl, but
Right.
I still really like the Bowl brothers, and like they were
The Bull brothers are great.
In general, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
like Ambi Bowl just being there to save the day and like still being like still pouty because his brother died. I don't know. I really like that part anyway. Even though like the real climax and the catharsis was from Briss and not dying. Thank you, Briss.
Yeah. And he had the sense of doom about it for all these books now. He's like, I was dead. To the seas I must return.
I thought
then,
he was gonna die.
I thought so too. And the moment Aaron is just like, no, not letting you go. And also, the line that Faint hears from Sweetest Sufferance, that tells us basically what Mael is trying to do. Like, this is a difficult thing for Mael. He's trying so hard to save Briss because he loves Tehol. Oof.
Yeah.
A lot
I
of good
think-
Mail stuff without Mail actually being on page.
Yeah.
Yes.
Up
With the
until Himoric.
Trigal Trade Guild, I think I'm okay with all the characters except for Precious. Like, her character to me was just very annoying and was more of kind of plot device, really, not a great character.
She felt misused to me.
Yeah. I gotta be honest, when I hear their names, they're all like in a Trigal Trade Guild name blob in my head, and I can't differentiate them into distinct characters, even though
Except
I
for
know
Ambi Bowl.
I know
What
they
about-
are
what about
distinct
Cartographer?
characters. But no, him, yeah,
Okay.
definitely. But I'm just like, oh yeah, Faint, Thimble, which one's which again? Like every time they're on the
Sweetest
page, I just
Sufferance.
cannot. Yeah, Sweetest Sufferance. Yeah, I'm just like, huh?
Cart-
They're just
Erikson does that character much better in Fall of Light, in my opinion.
which character?
A woman who's like playing two people against each other.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good to
Yes,
know.
the
Yes.
speaking of the Templar, actually, I almost brought them up, but I've been trying to curb my extended universe spring ups. But yeah, the Templar stuff reminds me of those characters from Fall of Light.
Can we talk about Vidal, because I loved the insects and
That's not in this chapter.
That's the next chapter, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, we have to talk about Sin first.
Let's talk about
hit
it.
Yeah, okay. I was really hoping I would feel differently about this read through.
Okay.
I don't. I still hate it. I hate it so much. I don't understand what this is doing here. I don't understand why. So Sin was one of them. Sin saved them on, like, I think half a dozen occasions at this point. She
At
saves
least
them
2,
here. More than 2. Yeah. But
maybe 3.
yes, at least 2. And she saves them here. Like, kind of indirect. Well, sort. I don't know. Anyways, she's climbing this stair. Stormy throws her off. She had done nothing to them at that point. And then she's like, okay, she's angry. She tries to kill him. She screams about how she's been hurt. Like, clearly she's talking to the ghost of the boy who raped her. She says, you tried to kiss my fire. No one's gonna hurt me ever again. I'm not gonna let anybody hurt me. And like the conclusion for this is that Stormy tackles her off the mountain, and we get this like oddly graphic scene of her like body exploding and like her ribs caving in and her brain going kerplunk. And for the conclusion of a series based on compassion and the characters that receive compassion and the fact that the Bone Hunters and like all the allied forces are on the same page, we're here to save somebody, to just write her off completely without even trying to talk with her, without nobody ever tries to help Sin. Besides like in a little bit in book 7 with Masan Galani. Like to me it feels like
I think that's
everyone
book
has
6. Yeah.
yes. Everyone gave up with her before they even tried. And like this sticks in my craw, especially since the Crippled God literally turned an empire, like he created an empire of people who were eating other people and raping dead bodies. And they're okay with showing him compassion, which I'm fine with, but they can't do the same. Like they can't even make an effort for one of their own, for someone who has saved them time and time again.
Okay.
I don't like it.
So a few things here. This did not bother me the first time I read it, but when I read it this time, I heard you saying everything you just said in my head while I was reading it.
Good.
Second of all, the Crippled God did not do what you just said. He was the power
He was
behind
the
that empire,
benefactor.
but
Yes.
the guy who did it also gets compassion at the end of Memory Spice.
Yes.
Panion.
Sure.
And then which is like not a consistent that is not consistently applied because you have like the jerk in House of Chains who is
Oh,
not
Bidefall. Yeah.
shown any compassion, and nor is it
Right. But
is a
that's
case made for
Karsa,
that.
right?
Right.
That's Karsa. So if Karsa was here, I guess I would be more forgiving of that. But this is Bone Hunters. This is their thing, right? This is what they're here for.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly a hole in the mythology, especially when you think about the next chapter and the fact that like Cam Sod writes these books to like understand human compassion and like to really get in the heads of the people that like would do anything for a stranger who's suffering and so
Right?
like he supposedly wrote this, right?
And we get that scene with the adjunct where she's like, I noticed all of your pain. I noticed every single one of you, and I noticed what you're doing for each other. And yeah, like I think that it would have been perfect if like the adjunct had found a way to save Sin. Or I don't know, there's a lot of possible options.
She wasn't
Like
there when that happened.
she wasn't there.
But...
I'm talking like the way the plot was, like you can contrive the plot in different ways. I think it could have been perfect if Hood had saved her or tried to talk to her. Because he had that scene with her earlier, and she's the Virgin of Death, and ice and fire, and like contrasting opposites there. And then there's so many ways this could have gone, and I think a lot of them would work better thematically. And like I so rarely play this card, but like she's also like a child, like a young child woman, and it also feels bad that like this old crotchety man is the one to kill her.
Have you ever considered that like she's supposed to serve as a contrast to the way that they treat the Crippled God?
I was thinking about that, but
Yeah, I was thinking that
I
too.
think that for that to have worked for me as an explanation, there would have had to be some introspection by like a character at the end that was sympathetic to Sin, and there wasn't. There was a little bit from Kaliath, who was like, "Oh yeah, she was a monster," and that was it. And we don't really hear about her ever again, right?
Well, maybe I'm thinking about this because it upsets you so much, and I have been thinking about it for a long time. Uh, but I think that's why she's there. Like, I agree. Maybe it should have gotten some more actually literal on-page introspection, maybe from a character later on. But like when you ignore somebody, and when you don't show them compassion, especially somebody that like this is exactly what can happen. Um, and not only that, like I think it might also be saying something about how easy it is to be kind to people you don't know personally. Like, how many organizations send money overseas to people who are starving when, like, maybe their next door neighbor actually needs some help? Maybe somebody who lives there, because it's so much easier to separate yourself from the pain of others who are actually near you, and it's easy to close yourself off to that. And it's a lot easier to do it to somebody you don't know who's like I've done it before. I probably should focus more on my own community, people near me, or even my family members who I know are in trouble. But when you're that close, it's all the more difficult, in my opinion.
So I think if anything is going to rehabilitate my view of this plot line, it's going to be that view. But at the same time, I would like
You would
obviously
expect
I would
people
expect
saying something like
readers.
that.
Yeah, I would expect readers to talk about this. I think readers generally don't really care about sin. I think I'm odd in the amount of thought and care I have for sin. And it's not necessarily wrong for people to not care about characters. That's fine. But I think for it to work like you were saying, then there would need to be a bigger impact on the readers for me to kind of accept it,
I think it's
if
the
that makes
lack
sense.
of commentary within the books about it.
Hmm.
That's the
And
problem.
yeah, so that would work better, the lack of commentary, if if this was in a book where there wasn't a bunch of unnecessary superfluous
Commentary.
like commentary from characters, like introspection about the morality of everything
Yeah.
under the sun.
Hey, those are the
Well,
best parts.
and even if you toned down all the moralizing in the book and let the action speak for itself and made this a scene where the action speaks for itself, having description that showed in some way that it's tragic that it happened. Like
Mm.
Right.
uh and not just from the standpoint of it being tragic that Stormy but also like the other problem I had with this scene, thanks Ash, you ruined this for me, uh
Good. Good.
is
I hope
that
it ruins
is
it for
that
every reader who listens to this podcast.
is
Wow.
that Stormy's the f***ing shield anvil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why didn't he embrace her in the capacity of a shield anvil while they were falling together?
Mm.
That
Like
would have worked too.
that would have been the best way to do the scene. Like, and it
And
would have like fit thematically with Stormy because of like his innocence and the way that he like just like is like this big softy underneath all the
Yeah.
like griping and whatever. Like it would have like fit Stormy perfectly. And it's like he doesn't do that to anybody in his capacity of as Shield Anvil for the entire last couple books when he's the Shield Anvil. Like, and this would have been the moment to like pay off him being the Shield Anvil at the
That's a good
same
point.
time as like dealing with the fact that Sin really just needed a big Shield Anvil hug from somebody.
yeah,
Like that
from
would have been
somebody who
the
could take it, you know? Like
Mhm.
she's like obviously she has like a lot of anger and resentment. But yeah, like Stormy's the perfect guy for this.
right.
He
And he
like
might not have been able to take it if he tried to do it outside of the context of his death scene, but he's already like gonna die. So it could have been
Mhm.
like an Enkovian thing when Enkovian tries to
Mm.
do that for the crippled god, and he's like gonna give up his entire existence just to do it in Memories of Ice.
Mhm.
Like it could have been that, like on the way down, and the embrace like finishes before they hit. Like
Mhm.
But and
that
like
that would
instead
have
he's
been
like
perfect.
his last real thoughts are like, oh, this girl's not she's not even a human anymore. She's just a monster. And then
Yeah.
tackles her
Yeah.
off the side of the
And I
tower.
could see like I can see that perspective in the choice to go down stopping her when you think about it militarily. Like if like the goal of the military operation is to awaken the heart of the crippled god and rescue it so that it can be embodied in the next scene. Then this woman's ambition at reaching the level jeopardizes the mission, and therefore strategically and tactically the choice is to sacrifice yourself taking her out. That's fine, and you have to put compassion aside to make that decision in a sense, right? Because you have to choose the higher goal that's going to save everybody and this being that's been suffering for way longer than sin has even existed, right? That's fine. But then at the end, when you've already made that decision, you have you're on the way down anyway. Just do the embrace. Like that would have been like even thinking like that it's regretful that you have to do this to her. Like as you're going
Two
down and like
things.
yeah.
I think there are two things that kind of make this almost unforgivable. Is one, they were all anticipating something like this to happen, right? And then two, there's no acknowledgement of what happened, what sin did, and like her end at all in the epilogues, like just after this whole thing, nothing. So
Yeah.
I think if yeah, there are a lot of, you guys covered a lot of ground in terms of like why this was a big miss. I think those two additionally also, yeah.
Okay, I've
Do you
gotten it
feel
out of me.
better?
My anger, I don't, but I'm glad we had this talk.
Yeah, and it would have like echoed. I will stop eventually, but it would have echoed not only Memory of Ice but Bone Hunters really well to have that the Shield Anvil thing happen because of like Haboric's thing, and then like the Haboric thing comes back up in the next chapter too. Like
I
I
would
don't
have been
know,
totally
like
fine with her just like collapse, like not. I would. My ideal scenario is Sin not dying, and finding someone who was willing to embrace her.
sure. I'm
But
trying to change as little as possible and still make
yeah,
it work.
Angelani.
Yeah.
yeah, she could ride in on her horse and be like, "I see you, Sin. Like someone in this world can actually look at you and see what's going on." And then Sin's like, "Thank God, finally."
So
It feels
hopefully
like I was written into a thing where everybody hates me.
hopefully listeners haven't rage quit this episode. But if you're still here,
Thank you.
the scene with Hood just bashing the Procruisale was great.
That was
Yeah.
That was
catharsis,
awesome.
though, right?
Yeah.
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 What was it? I am tired of your justice.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
Just the whole thing where he gets off the boat and he's walking on ice, and the people on the boat are like, "Where is he going? Oh no, we got to get off this boat quickly!" And then the dogs run after. Yeah, the whole sequence is just beautiful and so much fun to read.
Yeah.
Yeah. When was the Avengers released? Like the first Avengers movie?
2011. I don't know.
Was it 2011?
I
Oh
don't
my
know.
That's
god.
the same year this came out, isn't it?
Yeah. I was gonna say this
2012.
book did Hulk. Oh, 20. Okay, this book did the Hulk smashing Loki scene before Avengers did. Joss Whedon's a hack.
He totally read this and was like, I gotta put it in.
Yeah.
I
I actually hate that Joss Whedon made that movie
I'm sorry.
because it like
Tell me all.
changed. Like I really liked Firefly a lot, and
I
still
still like
like it.
Firefly.
I love
Yes,
Firefly.
and
I love
I
Buffy
do.
and Angel.
But what that movie did is it changed all movies, so they all have to have the tone of Firefly. Like every movie since then,
And like
and
it would
like
be fine if the tone worked for all those things. It worked really well for Firefly.
like it's fine. It was fine when it was just the Avengers movie, but it's
Mhm.
because of the Avengers movie, it's like every movie, and you have like all these heroes like just like sociopathically bantering about the fact that
Mhm.
they're murdering people in every movie, and like everything's got to have like the anticlimax kind of like the standoff where somebody shoots somebody and it ends
Mhm.
very quickly, and it's just like everything's Firefly now, and like the reason Firefly worked is because nothing else was like it. Now everything is like it.
Yeah.
And
It's going
I
away a
hate
bit.
it.
Yeah, it's going
That's
away a
good.
bit. But I will say props to YouTuber Jenny Nicholson for totally guessing what future Avengers movie would look like. She theorized, okay, you're gonna have a massive cast. What are they all going to do? Just be like everyone's going to get like 5 seconds of a quip and then it goes to the next person, and that's totally what happened.
Oh my God.
Back to the Crippled God though. Anything else to
Oh,
say on chapter 23? Oh, the Jagged Mess. It's a great finish to Jagged Mess.
I agree.
I love
Agreed.
yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's like almost a perfect tragedy, especially since way more Mass die than the Jagged. Like they are left with 10 out of the 13, so like only 3 of them die. And I think there's like a few hundred AMAS left out of the like 7,000 that they start with. 7 or 8,000. Jeez, Steve
Aren't there
really hates the
14
AMAS.
Jackpot to start with?
Maybe. The point is their numbers are reduced by much less.
Right. Well,
I mean, it makes
eh,
sense contextually, but damn,
yeah. But it was still a beautiful scene.
it was. It was absolutely beautiful. Panda, you definitely. I would be shocked if you caught this, but Karsa's scene where he kills Fenner was foreshadowed in House of Chains when he goes in during his like raid on the lake town. He smashes a boar statue.
Oh wow.
Oh my God.
Yep.
So that sequence, that was hard for me to wrap my head around. Because I was like, wait, why is Fenner's heart in Turgistan in a temple, and why
His heart. It wasn't a heart.
what do you mean?
Okay, so it was a tusk, right? So Karsa destroys the altar and the tusk, and he says, Karsa himself says like to the heart, right? It wasn't that his heart was literally in there; it's that he was using this as a way to destroy the heart. It's not that the heart was actually in the temple.
Oh, I didn't catch that at
Oh,
all.
so the temple was basically like a way to Fenner.
Exactly.
Yeah, so Fenner was manifesting on the battlefield, drawing on the like all the dead that were slain in battle now, which is why he's so big and powerful. So he manifests, and then Karsa just like is like, shh, and there's like a portal created, sort of a metaphorical portal, kind of that so that you see the huge sword go across the sky and kill the huge boar, and then just like, and then blood.
Yeah, it was not clear to me until I discussed it with people also that that Fenner and Hood and Karsa kind of all planned this.
Yeah.
Which yeah, so there's so much in this book that like
Wait, so Fenner knew that this was
Yes.
the
yeah,
Oh.
It was Fenner's
yeah,
plan, basically.
Yeah, ever since like Deadhouse Gates, I think is what.
Oh.
Because
Wow.
probably before Haboric even touched the statue. Like
yeah, maybe.
I think yeah, I think so. I think it makes it's at least something that makes Hood his comment to Haboric in the prologue make sense.
Yeah.
Uh like
So
they had planned it all out and
they
then
had intentionally made Haboric somebody who had touched both the
No, that was just chance.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The thing with killing Fenner as a sacrifice was planned ahead.
I see.
Yeah.
wouldn't that have meant that him bringing Fenner to Earth would have had to have been planned ahead of time too? Like the gods like nudged
Yeah.
that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone could set up Fenner or Haboric touching the statue and then getting like two pieces that are really, really important for the story. Like I think Shadowthron's like, hey, this thing over here, this is interesting, right? Maybe we could use it.
Shadowthrone's really good at that. Yeah, there definitely are ways to make a god manifest other than that. Like we see Hood manifest in Toll the Hounds, like in a way that's a lot
Through
less traumatic
sacrifice.
and dangerous. I think that it was unplanned in Deadhouse Gates because it was like so early, and if Fenner had died before then, it would have been like catastrophic. Because where are you gonna get another like war god from?
But yeah, it was cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm glad Karsa was in the final book and blood tornadoes.
What I will say is the way that Karsa's part played out was not what I was expecting. If you remember, one of my theories was that Karsa was gonna like embrace the crippled god and like kind of be the, you know,
He cut
the
okay.
compassion.
Munug was a member of the House of Change, and he did embrace Munug as Munug died, which is one of the
That
most
is
beautiful
true.
parts of the book.
They also allude to the idea that Karsa, despite his refusal of the role as the knight of the House of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says tonight I will be his knight.
Yeah. Okay. So in a way, that did happen.
Yeah, yeah, you like it was pretty close a prediction.
Yeah. Like I was like, hey, she's not that far off when you said
Mhm.
that.
But it
Because like
wasn't quite the way I had imagined it would
oh yeah,
be,
no, of course not.
Mhm.
So
But like yeah, that scene with him and Mugg has just stuck with me since it happened, since I first read it.
Mhm.
it didn't it didn't land with me as much. I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think
Sorry.
it relies on you feeling isolated from other people. Maybe you don't
Mm,
feel isolated from other people very much. I don't know.
I guess not. Maybe if I read it during lockdown, it would have been different.
Mm,
Maybe if
probably.
you hated cities and civilization and enjoyed rural life and homeless people not dying in gutters by themselves.
I'm a big fan of that
Um,
Okay.
personally.
Me too.
yeah, I'm very pro city, but I sympathize with Karsa because while I disagree with his conclusions, I do think the communalism of village life is something we need to bring to city life. And
I
his
Mm,
agree.
conclusion is that we just
mm,
need to destroy all cities.
Good luck with
yeah,
that.
I totally agree with you, Janath. And of course, the Marxist would vote for a series of communities, a communes, if you will. But yes, it's totally true. Cities aren't bad inherently. Like you can have cities where people have tight knit communities.
And
Um,
actually, the first like large thriving city states were originally communalist. There's like a bunch, or at least some of the first along the Indus River.
mhm,
You had a bunch of like thriving, like metropolises that were based on egalitarianism. Like there was no like stratification and burial grounds, and there's like other anthropological and archaeological evidence that they weren't stratified until because they had enough, so they didn't divide. They didn't like have a need for like a hierarchical division of resources. And then horse lords from the steppes invaded them, and
mm.
that's like what
Tale as old as
introduced
time.
stratification uh and like class divisions and things like that. So you can. It's like historically proven that you can have communal cities. It's
You
just we
know,
haven't had them
Mhm.
since then.
modern day, if you want to see city people band together, go to a sports game. Like just
Unironically, yeah.
go to a sports game and like you will see that communal feel, that communal feeling.
Those
Um
same people who are cheering for the same team will kill each other as soon as they leave, just for political differences. Cities are places where people who hate each other learn to live together.
Mm.
Isn't that
I
is
what
think that's
that
Karsa said?
what
beautiful.
you really
Yep,
feel?
Karsa's right. Yeah, I mean, like
You
I'm
live in
cynical about
Tokyo.
this. I live
Yeah.
outside of Tokyo, but I still agree with this. Like
I
I
don't
think
agree.
yeah, like the idea that people could actually be nice to each other and not hate each other, even though there are literally millions of people around, like it's a nice idea. I show me show me an example.
I just literally went over a historical example.
Really, a city with millions of people, and you were there, really?
Well, no, I mean it's not millions, but if there's no reason why in a more egalitarian society you could not replicate the experience of those civilizations.
That's good evidence.
It's a lot more. It's a there's they weren't villages. It was not Karsa's village utopia. They were cities, and people were packed into them. And because there wasn't stratification, there was not uh there was not these divisions that lead to people hating and killing each other. I mean, there's because there
Um,
wasn't poverty, there wasn't uh scarcity.
I would also say that like there there's a lot of modern cities where like, I would say most modern cities in like developed worlds, developed nations where people aren't like literally starting to most of the people in there are getting along pretty well with each other. And it's very
It's under
obvious when
standards.
it's very obvious when they're not getting along with each other. But
I
it's
mean,
a lot harder to build things than to destroy things. And we've built a whole lot.
there's tons of evidence of not cities, like small towns where there's so much animosity. So I don't
Mm.
think it's unique to
Right. That's
cities.
true too.
I think if you're anti-city in the way Karsa is, you have to go the way of the Jagged and like go all the way. It's like I can't stand anybody near me.
I I think you're right, Panda. Like these aren't like localized just to cities. They're localized to people, and anytime they get in groups. But cities, with the amount of people there are, they just multiply these problems by how many people there are. It's like, I mean, like comparing a city's garbage problem to a rural garbage problem. The rurals, they also have a garbage problem, but it's not as pronounced because there are just fewer people.
But you also have more resources to be able to deal with problems. I think it's a balance. Like you
Yep,
can't
I
say
agree
it's all
completely.
you can't say it's all bad, right? There's also a lot of good that comes out of it. Like the rural parts would also benefit by having like water treatment plants that were built, right? And, when they need it, like they have some place to go for shelters. So I think I don't quite agree with Carsa, and that's actually one of the readers' question, or sorry, listener questions about after reading this, how do we feel about Carsa's view? I don't quite
I'm
agree. I can see why it would. I can see
I'm
why
not
people
advocating
would,
for
but
extreme positions on either side. I just think cities are cesspools. I live in
That's
one.
that's an
I know
extreme
these
position,
things.
though. Cesspool is like a pretty harsh term to be used.
Okay.
There's a lot that's bad in cities. I will agree, and humans. There's a lot of bad stuff that get intensified when living in cities, but there's also a lot of good stuff that get intensified when living in cities. Like higher
Which is
education just wouldn't
which is
be a
why I
thing
live
without
near a
cities.
city.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and public transport is awesome in cities and things like that. But
and
You can have good
the
public transport outside of cities.
it's not going to
you
be as
could.
efficient.
Well, I will say that the parts of Boston that where I have lived, that you cannot go to without hearing gunshots, like
mm,
those are the parts where there's poverty, right? So I think that like there is something to be said for like why are the places with the poverty the places where that animosity is so awful that it's unsafe for anybody, and it's because of poverty, right? So
mhm.
if you did have an economic system that didn't produce poverty on that scale, at least it would curb that. Even if it wouldn't completely kumbaya, everybody's always just getting along perfect harmony. Like, I mean, there's a reason why all the gunshots are in Roxbury, right? Uh, and it's poverty. That's, I mean, there's no getting around that, in my opinion.
I would also say that we get kind of a skewed obviously we get a skewed perspective from Karsa, but I think he's especially skewed when you consider the fact that Karsa doesn't have to worry about food insecurity like the Emas did. They didn't have cities. They hunted all their people did. All the land was scoured clean, let's say, and then they were going to die. Um, but Karsa also doesn't have to worry about, and it doesn't seem like the Templar have to worry about things like disease or
Disease.
like infection or like genetic diseases like Huntington's disease, which is just like a horrible thing. But like cities, through our improvements in medicine or whatever, have been able to cure a lot of these things and make them livable, make them bearable, whatever else.
I mean, they
Um,
also create diseases just from having people
from
in such
animals
close
and
room.
humans living. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. But like, hey, we got rid of polio. That's a pretty great thing, right? And
Polio doesn't think so.
well, nowadays, oh god. Okay, you don't have to worry if you get scratched by like a nail, a rusty nail, that you're just gonna die from tetanus, or like an infection is just gonna kill you or take your arm or whatever. In a lot of developed nations, obviously there are a lot of underdeveloped nations that don't have this, and that's horrible. But yeah, medicine just wouldn't exist without cities. It's just we had like herbal poultices. Those are, I guess, better than nothing. But at the same time, like there's a lot of horror that's not dealt with in Karsa's worldview.
Also, like, I know that like not every village in the Malazan world is like this, but Karsa's villages also produced like the complete otherization of neighboring cultures and like, like
Mm.
rape, like and murder of those people. So like there's like this xenophobia and like lynch mob stuff that can come out of small villages too. It's not just that's none of that's unique to cities or like, a utopian virtue of villages. is the other thing, like which we are
Will
shown by
say
Erikson very clearly.
what I will say is like the Malazan world that Erickson and Eshelma have created, it's not one that comes to mind when you're asked the question, which fictional or fantasy world would you like to live in? Like
Right.
I would not choose Malazan. Like
Not even a
I
little.
I have a hard time choosing any of them. Like, if it's an
Yeah.
interesting story, it's probably not that great.
no, I like the especially like fairy tale retellings that I really enjoy, especially growing up as a kid. There were so many worlds that I would love, like Narnia. I would love to live in
Ah,
Narnia. You know,
Narnia's
um,
nice.
this is
Redfall.
not one of those. Like Redwall, right? That would have been really cool.
That's like the ideal one, I think. Yeah,
So
just kind of.
children's fiction.
I think a good example of uh really dark science fiction that still gives a fantasy world that I would want to live in is Ian Banks's Culture series.
Yeah, I was
Because
just thinking that.
the stuff that happens is like the
Yeah,
exception to what most people have to deal with.
yeah,
Like the central conflicts of the books are like, you know.
I agree with you.
Shall we get back to the plot of the Crippled God?
No, more about cities. Um,
They're not
Okay,
tired of it yet, I'm sure.
um, can we talk about Hatan and
Yeah, let's
how
get to chapter 24. Absolutely. Oh, no, Hetan. Sorry, not Hellion.
just
Go ahead.
just the end of chapter 23, like um how that happened, because I was just like not prepared at all. Like all of a sudden Hatan was back and the whole family was reunited. It was kind of funny where she's like, these aren't my toes, these are somebody else's toes. um
Yeah, implying like Talk like hacked off someone's foot and sewed it on to Hetan, her corpse.
I
it's dark.
guess but I don't understand how she's still alive exactly.
I don't remember how she's alive, but Talk was carrying her body around. That's how her body got there, at least.
Okay.
So was she regenerated by the Fenner blood stuff?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe.
Well, that
Yeah.
actually is a pretty good explanation.
Yeah.
That was always kind of a mystery to me.
Yeah. The real answer is Steve felt bad that he was so mean to Tan that he's like, I gotta give her a happy ending.
And Tool.
And
And Tool.
Tool,
Yeah.
and Story, and
Talk.
Stubby, and her brother. I forgot his name.
Yeah.
Well,
Abby.
how did you feel about the end? That their ending, Panda?
The children?
No, just like the whole thing, just like a really nice, neat bow, happy ending.
For
Oh.
Hetan and Tool and children.
Thank goodness. Like
Yeah.
that was good.
Yeah. I really liked that Hood was restored to mortality by the Fenner stuff.
Mhm.
So that like he committed the last act without his like godlike immortality. He was just a
Mm.
guy at the end.
Yeah, just his regular Jaghead immortality.
Right. I mean, you know, a jaghead guy, but he's still a guy. Like he was like, well, this is inconvenient timing. And
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier, but I was really satisfied with Torrent's ending and taking down.
I agree.
I'm not really happy with like Orlaatho just kind of just being motivated by love or lust for Tool,
That was
but
weird.
Torrent,
Mhm.
you know, learning from Talk and saving the children and doing it with the bow and arrow, and it's just, oh god, it felt so good.
Yeah.
I think it was a good ending for Torrent. I don't think it was a good ending for Olar Ethel.
That's fair.
yeah. But I mean, I kind of get it. Like
I
she's messed up. So that like her views on how to win somebody are messed up, and her
Yeah,
idea of
but
how to forge a happy ending is messed up.
she's like built up to be some sort of badass, and then at the
Mhm.
end it's like that was your motivation? That was
Yeah.
just it didn't quite align.
No.
Okay, to
I
be
agree.
clear,
Also,
what
isn't
it's
that her
not like
motivation like according to Torrent, or does she admit to that being her
she
motivation?
said it.
Oh, okay.
Like she
Yeah,
explained it
she
to
basically said
him.
it.
Yeah,
Like
anyway.
I thought he explained it to her, but
she like a lot of it was like, oh, this is the perfect specimen of my race. We're gonna rise up, like Emas rise up again to take the world, but it doesn't really work for me. And she's done better in Kark.
I agree.
Yeah, and she's not really EMAS either, right?
No, she's not. She's an elder god. She's like she's amassed in like the sense that she's like a divine mother kind of thing. But
She's the mass in all the ways
could've
that count because like even the other elder gods talk about how she took on the aspect of her race and even became undead for them. I think she sees herself as a mass.
I agree. I agree with that.
Um,
But she's like a completely different species ultimately, right? Like
Yeah,
we'll talk about it some other
A
time.
species.
It's complicated.
it's complicated.
I guess they are a shape-shifting species, so it kind of it's like I guess
They're
if you
like
just
elemental forces of nature and human ideas,
On on on
maybe.
on one hand, I'm kind of sad that that was her ultimate goal. On the other hand, I think it's really telling that such an uber powerful person is still motivated by such petty concerns.
I guess that's a good
Mm.
point. Yeah.
And like uh if you read into it on some level, despite all her power, she's lonely, and because she's this like powerful, ambitious jerk, she doesn't know how to solve for loneliness except this really
Very
convoluted, like
contrived,
horrible thing that would
elaborate.
never work.
Yeah, plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's kind of like really impotent throughout this entire book. She doesn't accomplish anything besides taking the children. She doesn't accomplish anything in the series besides taking the children, I think.
I guess she kind of
She
provides
makes oh
sh-
go ahead.
she provides the redemption for Torrent, right?
Yeah. That could have been done other ways, but yeah, like this is why I think like it's a
She
good end for Torrent for sure.
she takes Silchus Rua down a peg, and
Love that
uh
scene.
she comes into the Elder God council and laughs at them all for not knowing what the hell's going on, especially Erastus.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
she
I like
does
that scene
those
too.
cool things. She does all those cool things, and then like turns out to be like just as out of touch and impotent as the rest of the people she was like with.
Yeah.
So it's like,
That kind of seems like
yeah.
true for all the elder gods except for Male and Dracona, like the good guys.
The
At
well,
least
at
the people
least
we
like
should.
Erastus and Kilimandros and I guess such a leth like free Korobos, like that's something.
Yeah, I mean that's very
it's kind of
important.
like
It
it's
is.
it's kind of like a weird thing for me that the villains from the front half of the series, quote unquote, the villains, or the antagonists at least, all are like treated with sympathy and have this like nuance and are like morally complex, etc. And then the villains from the back half are all like just bad guys, like they're like comic book villains, all of them. It's like a very like weird like contrast.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's look at the villains for the back half of the series.
Is the Elder
Bone
Gods before
Hunters.
Coruscant?
Well, villains
Uh,
in Bone Hunters were Leoman, and I think he's actually quite nuanced.
okay, that's fair. Yeah,
There's Malak Rel, who is the merciful, and uh, I don't want to get into Malak Rel
That's
talk.
a whole can of worms.
I think
Like
he's actually a very interesting character
sure.
who's
I
very
meant
evil, but kind of explain.
That's
The
not
Reaper
I meant
in
Scale.
more
this
just
that's not in this
yeah,
I
series,
meant
right?
more the Elder Gods and the Naruk and the Assail and
the big
like
players.
like the big players here at the end. Like
Oh, okay.
I will say the Naruk get like after they're defeated and whatever. there is like a moment it's like, oh, maybe one day they can learn to forgive us. Or forgive the Chamal, basically for keeping them as slaves for thousands of years.
I mean, the
Um,
Parish are kind of bad guys. Or at least they're
but
antagonistic
yeah, they're the
to
most
our
interesting
dudes.
case. Uh the parish are the exception
I
probably.
know they're not exactly nuanced, even though each of the characters have their own thing, but I think the Assail are actually quite interesting.
I think the Assail are interesting. I think the clear example of the what Janath is talking about is the Leosin. Just
Yeah.
irredeemable, terrible people.
Yeah,
Like
yep.
even Aperil Forge is just a monster in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good counterexample. We also just suck at these books.
Yeah. Steve just
And
does not like them or anything that they represent.
and they're set up to be like where they could have maybe been interesting in House of Chains. And then like it just like doesn't go anywhere that
Ice
Can
is
interesting.
I
much kinder to the Leosin.
Yes.
Can I ask? Okay, so if we were just talking about this one series, right? None of the other books. Um, if the Leosin were not part of it, like, how much impact would that have on the series?
We wouldn't have the shake, probably. And I
Mm.
love the shake. Other
It
than
wouldn't be
that, not
huge.
much.
Mm.
You'd probably have to pare back a lot of Andy stuff too.
Yeah, because their whole thing about I agree, yeah.
To me, it's
Ultimately, not a lot, but if you like the Andy and the shake, then yeah, it'd be kind of heartbreaking for a lot of fans.
a lot of it was
Yeah,
kind of boring.
and also like Shadow wouldn't have much to contrast against itself.
Yeah. The Leosin are really there for contrast.
Yeah, which I guess, I
And
mean, they fulfilled their part, and that's
Mhm.
all really they needed.
yeah. I would have appreciated like glimpses of their civil war
Hmm.
through the books. I think there's really a lot of interesting stuff that happened there. But yeah, by the time they show up, there's very little redeemable about them. And that, like, okay, there are interesting thematic things with them, like uh, the ones that were fighting the Sheikh were mostly like, oh, these are the craftsmen of the city, these are the farmers, whatever else. It shows the cost of civil war and like what an entire people being enslaved to a war can
Mm.
do. And I think they're much more interesting than the Calansi. I think the Calansi are like
Yeah.
just an entire nation of faceless mooks to be thrown against the protagonists.
That
And
was kind
Yeah.
of disappointing, not gonna
yeah,
lie. It
Yeah.
was just like, so all of these people just exist, and all they are
they're just
doing
slaves.
is
Yeah.
fodder.
hmm Yeah, they're mindless slaves to be thrown at the protagonist.
Okay.
Yeah. It was pretty lame, and the echo there with they echoed a little bit in the next chapter we're going to talk about, where like the Leosin common soldiers were like admiring the Sheikh. You have an echo of that where the pure is like realizing that the Calanci underneath like their obedience and their desire to kill the Molassans, they are in awe of them, but it's like a much weaker echo. Like it was done
Yeah.
better with the Leo. It's one of the few things that was done better with the Leosin than. than-
um, another another people that do it better is the Tenniscowry, I think.
I was
Mm.
thinking that too.
Especially when you also include the character of Seer Doman, even in Memories of Ice, because Seer Doman's like he is a member of the Panion Domain that actually has some amount of like a small amount, some amount of agency, and isn't like a mindless slave.
Yeah.
So, I think this kind of thing was done
Was
better in Memories
already
of Ice.
done better. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah,
Agreed.
and Lorik and Osric were cool earlier in the series,
yeah, how about those
which
guys?
like made it all the more disappointing that the Leosin weren't cool. Uh, but
You could have
Yeah.
just had even Lorik show up hmm and do something, anything.
yeah. Shall we get to chapter 24?
I mean, there are only so many words that could go in the book.
yeah,
Yeah, but
could
there
have
were so
taken
many
some away
words
from
you
the
could have
Trigal
done.
Trade Guild.
The Trigal Trade Guild didn't take up that much space.
And
You
I'm not.
remember the captain from Toll the Hound?
I don't have as much qualm about the guild as Ash does, but there were a
Mm.
lot of other indulgences that I would have rather spent on other parts of the story.
I think indulgences is the word I would use. Yeah, because like there's very little I think is outright bad. I don't know if I would say I think really anything is outright bad.
Except the sin
But
scene.
oh, Cincy. Yeah, I think I will agree with that statement. I have passed judgment. Bad.
Chapter 24.
Yeah, let's go to chapter 24. Chapter 24. The Bone Hunters hold the line against the assail, and the crippled god is freed.
Yep, that's all that happened. The end.
That's all that happens. Yeah. We have any thoughts about this? No one really cares of the Bone Hunters here, I think, so we can just move on.
No. Nefarious Bread is real.
Is
That
he?
is immediately undermined in the very next scene that he's
Kept
mentioned.
ambiguous.
It's not undermined. It's ambiguous. And that's why it's beautiful.
Yeah, my interpretation is that like the narratological device of nefarious bread manifested itself in the real world for that scene, and that he never actually existed outside of that scene. That is my interpretation. It's like this like meta stuff that was done for that scene,
I
basically.
love that. I think nefarious bread is kind of like Batman, you know? Like part of the point is anybody can be nefarious bread. Except for not everyone has the natural gifts of being short.
I guess. I think so. The moment in the scene where nefarious bed supposedly was real, I was disappointed. That was my reaction. I was like, hell no. I
I thought it
refuse
was
this.
hilarious.
Yeah.
I
Um,
was so for it. I was just like,
I
yeah,
I know. I rejected it.
but I was very for it, but I'm glad they undermined it. I'm glad it
Mhm.
like got cut
Yeah.
undercut.
Because it might have just been a Marine messing with Fiddler.
it could have been Fiddler's imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does that.
Hedge does not back him up when he
Mhm.
It says
when
something.
he tries to. Yeah,
Okay.
I like the ambiguity of the whole thing, and I love
I
that
like the
he
ambiguity.
thinks he saw bread.
I think I think he's just a meme that became real for one scene. Like that's what happened.
That's
Like
a thing in Malazan, right? Like he's like an elder god in that way.
Oh,
Or he's like the god that Kataspala makes.
Yeah.
so what do we want to talk about in this chapter?
Dragons?
Okay, let's talk about dragons. Um, where the hell did all these dragons come from exactly? Because I thought so many of them were dead.
Yeah.
they came through the gate.
But I thought that
That
was like almost dead.
what do you
So
mean?
there was what happened to the gate of Starville Demelaine was it was open for a while during the
Uh-huh.
Teist Civil War, and the Hust Legion held the gate until it was closed, basically. Which is why there's so many dead dragons, because the Hust Legion was just killing them all, and Um, so the dragons were still around in Starville Demolain, and like probably in other realms as well. Like dragons in this series are kind of like the first things that come out of chaos that aren't chaos. So it's
Okay.
possible they just kind of like spawn that way as well. But yeah, like they just kind of
They
yeah.
come through the gate after the Azeth dies
Mhm.
and
Kalava kills it.
Gruntle gets killed,
I
and
know how
that's when
they
they come
came,
through.
but I just thought that the numbers were a lot lower than what we were shown.
In the
You
world of
know?
Malazan, it's a lot lower, but like, oh, sorry, in the realms that we are familiar with, it's quite low.
Okay.
But
Yeah, so these are like surplus dragons from Starville Demolition that were
Okay.
like that because that gate was closed through the whole series. There are not that many dragons on this
mhm,
side of the gate until
Okay.
the gate is opened, and they all come out because they're attracted to
Corvus,
Carabas. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about her because
yeah,
I'm a little confused where she was chained, right?
mhm,
Like her whole existence is just antithesis and antithetical, whatever that word is, to like
Life?
basically everything
Life.
else. And yeah,
mhm.
and so, she knows it and she's like, she's not trying to destroy the world.
Nope.
That's not what
She
she
just can't
wants.
help it.
She just wants to be able to be a part of the group, you
Mhm.
know?
She wants
And
to be able to make anything. She can't ever make anything because she's anathema to it. Yeah.
right. And so her being chained the first time was a blessing? Question mark?
For everybody, and I guess for her if she doesn't want to kill everybody.
Right? So
So
then
she's.
yeah.
Have you read the short story, the ones who walk away from Omelas?
No.
Okay. Well, Ursula Le Guin sets up a city called Omelas. It's perfect, except for there's one child suffering torment inside it.
Uh-huh.
And um, the question posed at the end of the story is, do you stay in the city or do you leave? Anyways, Korobos is the tortured little city that lives in the base, a tortured little kid that lives in the basement of the city, so that everything else can exist.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't kill her the first time,
No,
right? Which they could have, right?
if
If
you
they,
kill her, you kill magic.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
which is how I thought the series was going to
I
Mhm.
I thought that too. So her being released. Okay, this might be a dumb question. Like, could she just stand still? Like, just not move? Why does she
She
have
would
to be
get killed
chained?
by dragons, but
Maybe.
I mean, like, the
um,
whole thing about it is like she's like flying, she's like going off and like,
mhm.
destruction in her wake. But if she just stayed in one place without being chained,
So that's what happens to her at the end. She gets a place to live separate from everything else, where she can just stay, and she gets Heborg for company, I guess. And they just
okay,
hang
so
out and mope
she's
together.
not actually chained in the
She's like
end.
chained in a sense that she can't really leave the warren that she's in, but she gets a
Okay, but
warren.
she gets a whole warren to play with.
Yeah. Cruel and Male set that up for her, I think.
Okay,
Or like it's a cavern or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why they needed Hiborg.
I see.
Mhm.
Okay, I think I didn't understand that part. I thought they just chained her again, and I was like, what? But that's what they did
That's
before.
Yeah. Do you remember the scene where Hiborg was like throwing his hands in the sand? I think it was like
Yes,
yeah. I think that was just a separate warren. And then yeah, Male and Cruel come up and like, hey, we got something for you. You ready? He's like, not really,
I
but I'll do
see.
it.
Okay.
And then
oh,
like
Hiborg
yeah.
was doing that the entire series. Well, a lot of the series, thrusting his hands into the sand.
Basically
I
since
guess
he
he could have been
died.
making a yeah. I guess he could have been making a warren like that entire time, kind
Oh,
of like shaping it.
Wow. Oh yeah, that's true, I
okay.
He was
guess.
shaping something underneath the sand. Like Kaliath saw, like went on a dream journey and saw him doing that.
That's true. Yeah.
Neat.
Okay. Okay, that
Yes, Panda.
clarifies more.
Actually, I had that exact same idea all the way up until about an hour ago when sorry, 3 hours ago now when I finished the book again. So you're not alone. I thought she was chained as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
I kind of got a hint of it this time, but I still kind of thought that she was just chained. And I was like, what are
Mhm.
they're acting like she's gonna be like hanging out in this cave. I don't get it.
I think we're confused because the crippled god was like, "You're gonna ask me to chain somebody after I've been chained for this long. It's so
Yeah.
hard."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I need enthusiastic consent from the dragon I'm going to chain up.
She wants you to, man. She loves it.
She
No, so my whole point was I just wanted it to be that she got a better ending this time around than the
then
previous time.
and
And
she did,
so
yeah.
she did.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
What did you think about the big reveal that Cam and Sod wrote the book?
Um, I wish I was more surprised and like it was more impactful. I honestly it didn't it was kind of like, ah,
That makes sense.
but what about how is this possible? Because like did he just like send this book down? Like what book does this world exist in within the Malazan universe? Does
It
it?
would be
Maybe it
the world
doesn't.
that he returns to after he's freed.
He is from our
Which is
world.
our world?
Can't so the last part doesn't make sense really. Cam and Sod, Cam and Steven. Because Steve didn't want it to be Cam and Stev.
The crippled god
Yeah,
is Cam and Steve. It's the
yeah.
idea. It's that they created this world that they tortured, and they were the bad guys and people were fighting against them. And they I this is just the way I think. They created this world where they tortured people and they were mean to them, and in return they learned uh compassion through gaming, I guess. They learned compassion through making these
Okay, but
things.
if you ignore that hyper meta and just go back down to the regular meta that is more established in the text, uh, I'm pretty sure that the book is like a religious text on Kamensod's world. Like when he goes back, like he makes up the Book of the Fallen to like teach his people about compassion and about mortals and the sacrifices they made and like to try to, and it's also a way of like him trying to understand
Mhm.
why these people would go through everything they went through to alleviate the suffering of somebody that they don't know.
Yeah, I
And
see it more like a journal of like, how could I understand like why these people would do this for me?
Yeah.
right,
And
yeah,
And that I think is also a reason why there are so many characters kind of doing like monologues to himself. I think a lot of that, not all of it, but I think a lot of it is Kamensod kind of inserting thoughts that he thinks that these characters might have had, um, and trying to understand their thinking process.
Just like Krupp in the Toll the
Yeah,
Hounds.
and like yeah,
Even
Crop
if
on the
he
Ox. Yeah,
was able to somehow know that that's what they were thinking, the fact that those things are included is because those thoughts help him understand what he's trying to understand by writing the book.
yeah.
Uh, so, you know, whether he's coming up with it himself or has some kind of divine ability to know that's what those people were thinking or whatever.
Or if he just
And
like went around interviewing people, like journalist Cameron Sod comes down and is like, "Hey, can I get your opinion on these events that occurred at this date in your lives?"
oh my god.
I'm still wrapping my head around Cam and Sod being Cam and Steve.
Yeah.
There's a really good video about it, by, Ruth on Bad that you can watch now,
Okay.
if you've read the whole
Yay.
series.
That has the
Okay, I
best
guess
content. Or an if.
that's k that's kind of the exciting part, maybe even more exciting than, like, actually the ending of the series is now there's so much Malazan
You've
content
unlocked
that I
them.
can
Yeah.
partake in or, like, can consume,
He
and honestly,
also,
like
right, he also has a really compelling video about, like, he rejects the idea that Toll the Hounds is the cipher for the series, and he says that Cotillion is the cipher for the series.
Good video.
okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Ruth Unbed hates Told Hounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He
I
doesn't hate it.
see.
He professes to hate it and mocks people who like it.
He's that's just what he's like.
He's
Yeah.
an edgelord,
Yeah.
but he's a
Um,
very smart, charismatic, funny edgelord.
um,
That's a good way to
AP
put
also has a is doing a series of videos on how the knowing that Kamenstad is the author of the Book of the Fallen changes your view of each book, or
As you
how
reread.
to interpret how to interpret each book through the lens of Kamenstad as the author.
Okay. So
That's cool.
what was it? Was it Told the Hounds that we were like, oh, maybe Krupp is the narrator, or maybe that was Reaper's Gale. I don't
In
Krupp
remember.
was
Toll
the
the
narrator of
Hounds
Told Hounds. Yeah.
in Toll the Hounds, I became convinced that Duiker and I think that Erikson did this on purpose. I became convinced that Duiker and Fisher Kaltath are the authors of uh the Book of the Fallen in Toll the Hounds, and
Hmm.
I think it was on purpose because there are two epigraphs in this book that are attributed to the Book of the Fallen by Fisher Kaltath. So I think he like knew that people were going to think that and like deliberately misled them in this book to think that Fisher was the author to like
I see.
throw us off the trail of the actual authorship.
Hmm.
Okay, so admittedly, it's really the conversations that we have about what we read that makes me appreciate what I read more because that moment of like, oh yeah, Crippled God was the other was like, okay, whatever, sure.
Mhm.
It
And
blew my mind because I had been chasing this question of who wrote the Book of the
oh,
Fallen, and I really did not believe it was going to be the big reveal at the end of the series. Like I thought I was just like being a nerd. And then like it being the big reveal at the end like was very satisfying for me because I had convinced myself of who it was and it was
yeah,
incorrect. And
That's
like
hilarious.
that felt good to be wrong on that one.
got it.
We also get by the way, I love the scenes with Tavor in this. Like specifically when Banishar and Fiddler are taking care of her after she faints, when she sticks the sword in, and like Banishar like has a tender moment where he's
Cleans
like
her.
wiping the
Yeah.
cleans her, and she like wakes up. And she's like, I must have been a mess. And then when Lostara Yil helps her prepare, and first of all, we see that she's a Talon.
Yep.
In case you missed that, Panda. Yeah. So that's how
I
she
missed
got.
that the
Well,
first time.
that's how she got a lot of her information. And the she puts perfume on.
Yeah.
She just wants to feel like a person. You know.
Well,
She
and also the first words from her to Ganuus when
Janice.
they were reunited, that I think that was more impactful than
That
all
was
the other
huge,
scenes,
yeah.
really.
And you could have easily had that scene where like she or Ganois ended up killing the other by accident, like to echo House of Chains,
Yeah,
And
It
if you
was
look at
echoing House of
those
Chains, absolutely right.
scenes side by side, it's almost the same. Looking through a visor, not being able to see, and then he
And then
catches
like
her hand.
losing control of your hand, you swing a sword or
I don't want
whatever,
to kill you. Oh god,
and then
that
he
seems
grabs her
incredible.
wrist.
that was amazing.
Hey,
So
I thought that she had killed him, you know? And then I had to reread that section. I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute. No. Okay, thank God.
so
Thank
so
God.
something that frustrates me about this chapter are that like okay, so earlier in the book series, there are reveals that are done very subtly, multiple times, that are easy to miss. But then eventually a character will just say it outright for like the dum-dums like me who missed it the first 2 or 3 times it was revealed. Like
Usually through quick
uh
pen.
yeah, like like the whole like Shadow Throne being Kalinved thing, like that's revealed like 3 times before somebody actually just says it. But the thing is that these reveals at the end are only done subtly and they're never like outright stated. So like her being a Talon, missed it. Cotillion needing to kill Kamen Sod in that body so that he could actually be freed, didn't get that. So I was like, why did he betray Kamen Sod? Why would he kill him? That's a terrible ending. Like, it, I think the time to have subtle reveals is past. This chapter should have been more overt about some of these reveals. It was too subtle. I missed it. It went over
I
my head
think
on like 2 major reveals, and I was just like, please
So,
stop.
so your ideal scene for the Talon reveal would be like Listaria Yale sees the golden necklace thing and says, "Tavor, you're a Talon," and then Tavor's like, "Yes, I was a Talon this entire time.
Maybe
I am a
not.
High Grand Master of the
Maybe
Order."
leave that scene as is, but have it be like in an internal monologue of
Hmm.
Lestara Yule, like, later on towards the end when everything's getting wrapped up, so that it's like, oh, in case you missed it, she was a
Imagine if it
so,
was like a heel turn moment, like Lostariel says, "Oh no, we've been betrayed this entire time," and then like Tavor suddenly grows a mustache and she begins twirling
oh
it, just
my
like ah
God.
ha ha, yes.
No.
I could not
there's just
disagree more, and it's partially because I read a book recently where 1.5 chapters was literally the narrator stopping and saying, "I bet some of you are confused," and then goes on for 1.5 chapters explaining everything that
that is
happened,
not what I
and it
want.
was the worst thing that I've
What
ever
Oh,
book
the
read.
was
book.
that?
Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, it's garbage.
Oh.
I obviously am not advocating for either of those things. You could be like something in between the narrator pausing the action to explain everything and like so subtle that a reader could miss it if they don't like talk to a bunch of people who have also read the book about it and look it up on the wiki. Like,
Okay, like I hear what you're saying, and I agree that maybe it might have been too subtle, but like there are a lot of hints. There are a lot of hints like leading up to this. Like when I'm reading this,
Paladin.
like they got old conversations where people are referring to like their plans or saying if this happens, then this will happen. Even just in Crippled God or the Dust of Dreams, and like we really probably should go back
I,
in the
I
spoiler
did
section and talk
actually
about that.
catch one more hint uh to this, and it's when I forget what chapter it's in, it might be this one, when she finally lays everything out on the table for Blistig.
Mm.
Mm,
Uh
yeah.
We
the
lost
hint
4 agents.
is yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's the hint. And like
and
then
then
he
Blistic is
using
even like agents.
yeah,
Who?
who?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I and I missed that the first time too. Or like I mean I didn't miss it, but like I didn't draw that to
Mhm.
she's a Talon. Like I was just like, oh,
Sure.
she has agents because she's an
The
important person
really
in the Empire. Whatever.
the really big hint, like near the start of the series, is Bowden. And how could Tavor command a Talon like Bowden to do what he did? And then it's like it's they come so close in House of Chains to just discovering this, and then it just gets dropped because she kills Pelisan. They're just like, let's never talk about this ever again. Which I think is really well done. I like, for the record, I didn't catch that Tavor was Italian before I saw the necklace, but
Yeah, I didn't
it's
know
really
until
funny
the
how
necklace.
how close like he comes out to saying it.
Well, I missed it the entire time. Like I only
Yeah.
know because of like the wiki. Uh,
Yeah.
Well,
That's it.
hey, to be like fair to you, right? Like you have been on this journey at this point for 9 over 9 books. And at this point, it's like, I just want to be able to know what happens and what, like, finish this,
Yes. So you're
right?
not reading as carefully because you're like trying to see like the more overt
Yes.
story. Whereas like earlier on in the journey, when you're reading and rereading the same fucking section over and over and over again, you're catching all those little hints and clues and stuff, or not all of them apparently, since it was apparently hinted all along that she was
Well,
Talon, but whatever. A lot of them.
but
Like,
here's something to consider, right? Like, why I think, the first 3 books were so much easier to read is because there was so much less information you had in your brain. And by this time, there were so many characters, so many plot points, so many different like descriptions and details of things that you're trying to juggle and make sense of, right? So I think at this point it is harder to catch a lot of these things because there's just so much.
And then a demon from book 4 shows up.
I would like to read the scene in question. Reaching inside, she drew out a necklace, a simple leather pouch and an eagle's talon of brass or gold. Then she turned to the captain. Would you tie this, we please? But Lostara simply stared at the talon. Imagine this. She's staring at this thing. They've mentioned talon twice. Then she looks up at Tavor's eyes. She looked up, met Tavor's eyes. The object said, I am a child of the Emperor. What's there more for you to understand, Lostara, you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I just took that as like a political statement and not as statement of faction allegiance the first time I
Well, then what's the talon mean in this thing?
but here's the thing,
That's
like,
the sim
if
isn't that
you
the symbol of the empire? It's like the claw holding the orb?
The claw holding an orb isn't a talon. It's a claw holding an orb.
Is that not what the necklace looks like? What does the
No,
necklace
it's
look like?
it's like a talon.
it's just
it's
a
just a
talon.
talon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, see, the narrator doesn't put the emphasis on the word talon like you
It
do,
doesn't
but
capitalize
still.
the T.
No, but they do say that Lestara was staring at the talon,
Yes, but here's the thing, right? Like, if
and then
if
then the adjunct has to explain it.
yeah, but she didn't come right out and say
I
it.
mean, also, I am like fairly sure that when I read this, the first time I read most of this book with my eyes, and then this chapter was audiobook reading, and you don't linger on the
Yeah.
words the same way. Like when a
It's
narrator
really
says
easy
it,
to
the word
miss.
just yeah.
It's easy to miss,
It's
but
like
I don't think that's a call for things to just be more or less subtle.
I think that if you're a character and you find out if you're a character in this world and you find out that your commander is like part of a secret assassin cult that you know the name of, you're gonna at least have an internal monologue where that word goes through your head of like I'm realizing she's a talent. Like just like if I like realized like my boss was a CIA assassin, I would think the word CIA assassin in my head. Like I wouldn't be like, oh, it's the symbol of the CIA. Like I wouldn't like think about it pictographically. I would think the phrase. You know what I mean? That's how people's thoughts work.
Sometimes I think Steve is too subtle, and like things are easy to miss. And sometimes I think he's way too overt.
Obvious.
This
This
scene I think was perfect.
um I think the overtness of a lot of the reveals in this probably condition the reader to not look for the subtlety as much. Like when
yes,
Olar Ethel, like the scene with Olar Ethel, it's literally like, oh, she's in love with Tool. This is why she's been doing all these things.
yes,
And
yes.
then
I
she's
agree
like
with that.
literally screaming out her plan. I'm gonna seduce this man now.
I think that's what bothered me the most. Like I'd be fine if I would be more fine with that whole thing if it were not written like that, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree.
Well, and then the cotillion thing with him killing Kaminsad, it was not clear to me at all why he
I
like
had to
took
read
him
that
out.
several times. I admit, like, I was so confused, partially because of if we didn't have, what was it, Korik's perspective, I think I would have
He just
gotten
doesn't
it.
understand what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, but because Korik's perspective was there and it was like his emotions were what you're reading, right? That is like priming you to have his emotions. Um, that was confusing. And so
Um,
I understand why you had that confusion.
I think so. That one I feel like is a bit more easily explained because the scene before that, it's like Hibork and Kroll and Mail saying like, "Oh, your body is broken and bent, and Habor can start you on this journey, but another is going to have to finish it. And then
Sure.
after Quick Ben and Fiddler have that little conversation, it's like, oh, just give him some time. He needs to understand. Like he'll get it. Which feels like nod to the reader
Agreed.
in a sense. But I don't feel very strongly about this. I think it's fair that you like if anybody misses it, I don't think it makes them like a bad reader or anything.
I agree.
Yeah.
I also
It
think
just
that this being more subtle is more naturalistic, whereas I don't think that if you're talking about like naturalistic introspection and naturalistic dialogue, which is like the whole basis of the writing style of the series, I think if you're Lestara Yill, you have a thought in your head, a conscious thought of like she's a Talon, and that would not be unnaturalistic, right? Like that, I in that scene I would be thinking that, like in a similar parallel thing. You know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
almost like veering away from naturalistic into like it being more obscure. But yes, if your words on the page, reading it closely, like Kieran did, it seems like yeah, duh. Obviously, it says Talon twice in the descriptive language, even if it's not like in her head, like which it
yeah.
would be, I think. But whatever.
Oh, I should say another moment I really like from Tavor, is when she asks if her statue will be beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And of course, it's going to be beautiful. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Can you understand why we like Devore now?
I mean, the short answer is yes. I
Excellent.
understand why. Um I'm still processing her.
Yeah, of course.
Hmm.
Mostly some of it is like I guess we can talk about it in the series wrap up. I think that's more appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And then she also has her scene on like the broken down old horse, and she's so tired and emaciated, but she still rides straight.
Yeah.
And she gets like one moment to, like one section of this entire series where she gets to like express her emotions by killing all those Clancy.
Yeah.
She finally lets it out, like everything that she's been carrying for all these books, these immense burdens, and now she doesn't have to carry it anymore. She can finally just put it down. She's done all that she can
So
do. Yeah.
Her speech was great too.
Mhm. Yeah.
except Blistic didn't
Yeah.
understand.
I
um
need to salvage that terrible speech.
yeah.
Soldiers, come on, let's.
I really like that we finally get an explanation of why she didn't fire Ballistic like 30 times
Yes.
over. Like,
Mhm.
That was a satisfying explanation.
yeah.
Um, I think the scene where the regulars went and surrounded her and tried to keep her safe and everything, the way that whole sequence was done, I
Mhm.
really, really liked it. And I wish that a lot more of this ending was like that. So,
I agree. The scenes with the heavies, sorry, the Marines and the heavies, I think it was a bit too disconnected. I think there wasn't enough linkages between a lot of them. So like you had just like, oh, Skull Death shows up and then immediately dies,
right.
right? Like
Yeah.
isolated from everyone else.
I
I
like that
think I
Herb
think that was too
finally
isolating. Urban
I
and
like that
Hellion
Herb
finally get
finally
together.
tells Helene he loves her.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I
Eh,
think that
yeah.
after reading this book, I just really don't. I mean, between like Bryce and Aronect and like Corlad and Whiskey Jack and Hellion and Herb, that I think it's just fair to like put to rest the idea that Erikson can't write uh, romance, and that it's just the act of people falling in love that kind of falls a little flat sometimes. But for the most part, like his romances work for me.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's people in love work
Yes,
for the most
right.
part. Yeah.
But that's the best part of romance to me. I don't know why like the falling in love is always what we like want to be the best part, but like
Oh,
I
I can't
uh,
stand those stories,
yeah,
but like I think this is just like the man versus woman thing, right? Women like this.
I like this.
Yeah,
No, I
clearly
mean
you're a
like
woman.
the build up, that
The
is
tension.
very exciting and to read, and that's not what Erickson really does in these romantic relationships. He does
yeah,
more of the it's established and the like maturation. I guess,
Mhm.
of the love. Like the urban Hellion thing, I wish I enjoyed that more. I wish I was like, "Oh my god, yay, it finally happened." I did not care.
You
Oh,
don't
I
like
loved
Just
it.
Hellion though, yeah?
no,
And
I didn't
tell
like
you why.
Hellion,
Yeah.
and I wasn't like rooting for Herb to get the girl or anything.
Oh, I
To
liked it
me,
all, but
it didn't
um,
do much.
the reason I like that the reason I don't mind a story that just focuses on mature developed relationships is I feel like that is like so severely lacking in writing
Yeah.
about romantic love in general, like and for television and film as well, that it like there's this culture of like the exciting part is falling in love, and then like if you don't have those highs all the time in your stable committed relationship, it's almost like you're taught to like look elsewhere, and like it like people are missing how awesome it is to be in a stable committed relationship and like the depth that can
Yeah.
come from that. And like I like that is, I mean, some of the most beautiful romantic moments that I've ever experienced are
It it
when
just
it's
gets
in the
better.
long haul. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's
Exactly.
you know what's
Just gets
awesome?
better. That's right.
You know, like, really getting to know someone and being
Yes.
with them and going through stuff with them and just,
Yes.
like, not even worrying about it, you know? Just getting
I
Yeah.
to
mean, I
rely
think
on that. It's great.
part of it is a lot of that is in women's fiction. It's just that's not the kind of thing that you would normally pick up to read. I don't know. I don't know if Kieran, you really read women's fiction.
I just got through like reading 3 Jane Austen books in a row and 2
Okay, fair.
romanticises.
And you read
Well,
I've read
Lolita,
a
which
lot
I've
of
heard is
Jane
very
Austen.
romantic.
God, I hate you.
So
I don't
And
think that's
what
considered
else did I
women's
read
fiction.
recently? I read what was that one? Time Traveler's Wife. That one
but
killed me.
Jane Austen is a perfect example of what I'm talking about though, because the part where the relationship is fully established is the end of the book in
Hmm.
every Jane Austen book. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
So
also the Sharing Knife. That was so good.
Yeah.
Oh, see, that's a good example of what Janath is talking about because, like, okay, I guess foils for staring at, like, they immediately commit to each other. It's like, okay, that the falling in love thing is not what's going to happen here. It's kind of like what is going to happen is they're going to make their relationship work within the world that they're in.
what is this book?
The
Or
Sharing Knife by
It's Louis
Louise.
Master
Sorry,
Bujold.
the first book in it is
the sh-
Beguilement.
can you
Hmm.
say the title slowly? Because I
The
keep missing
Sharing
it.
Knife.
The Sharing Knife.
Yeah,
I
That's
want
the
to check
name
it
of
out.
sharing
the
a knife.
series.
Hmm.
Okay.
Beguilement's the first book. Yeah,
Beguilement. Okay, I want to check that out.
I've only read the first book because that's the
Lady
romance one.
Ash,
Oh, also don't
Little
forget
Red, and I did an episode on it.
Shards of Honor. Another one, Louis McMaster Bujold. It's a romance.
Um,
No,
back to
wait, one more.
no.
War Leader Gaul and his wife Hanavat. That is beautiful.
I was gonna say let's get back to the Crippled God. Thank you, Kieran. Yes, and he gets to be the hero against an assail. Well done, Gal.
They got a great relationship.
I loved that she wouldn't name the kid after him.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. Though because of what she's not just in general, but because of why she said she wouldn't name.
I know it's not happening yet, but I was so happy to see Absalar and Crocus back together.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was good. That was good and short. You know, the sadness has gone away. Do we have anything to say about the battle? Just
I like
beyond
the
what we said.
laughing scene
Yeah.
and
Oh, Badal and the insects. You were going to talk about that
yes,
earlier.
insects. How cool was that?
That was really cool.
It's quite cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and they get taken out by their old god, who's also like these giant crystal insects, and Badal's just being Badal, who's like one of my new favorite characters. Let's read through.
She's awesome. Yeah.
Finishing this book really makes me want to DM a Savage Worlds campaign in the Malazan world. And the Badal scene is a scene that made me want to do that.
It was just cool, and it was
Yeah.
satisfying to see the assail get their, comeuppance.
I like the Unbound MS trying to take out.
That was so cool. They come from below and just like shake him
Call
like
back
a
to Tool
yeah,
from
tools,
Gardens
Yeah,
of the
Gardens
Moon
of the
there.
Moon.
Yeah.
that's what I thought too.
I thought they would have done more. I
7 of
like
them?
against the Furkra assail. I thought that they would have done more damage.
Well, it's
So
been established that one Forkal assail can take out like 1,000 IMAS. Like that, the
more.
stairs in House of Chains that are just made of IMAS corpses are from Calm. So
Okay.
so
I
they did a
think
lot.
I think they did pretty
yeah,
good considering.
this calls back to one of my problems earlier that I mentioned earlier in the book, where it's like the okay, yes, power levels like aren't really a thing in Malazan,
Uh-huh.
but given the context of things that like happen in contrast with each other, like some of them don't quite jive for me, specifically when it comes to taking down powerful opponents. And I think this is a good example. Like a lot of the things that happen here are good examples. Like a lot of the the deaths of the peers actually do work for me here. Like Briss, his thing for killing the assailant totally makes sense for me. Totally makes sense. That's cool. That's cool. But it feels like it gets diminished when it's like, okay, she didn't take down a peer, but she turned like a high water, and she was able to fight with a peer, like the Falash's handmaiden, unnamed handmaiden, who
Mm.
is just a Segula. Like she's able to duel with a peer and kind of hold her own. And clearly, if there were 7 of her, they would have been able to take down on a sail.
She's a badass though, and he wasn't even a peer.
Yeah, well, so she fights with one of the peers earlier, and
Equity.
the voice works on her sort of, kind of the first time, and then not again.
Mm.
And like she's still able to duel with the assail a little bit, but
The voice.
yeah, and we do like see that like, oh yes, Calm killed hundreds or thousands of IMS just solo and created this bone stare. So why is like a single punch from Gessler enough to like annihilate a shoulder or whatever, Yeah, it's
Because
just
he's
like
an
little things like
ascendant,
that.
right?
Huh?
Or it's like because of his like ascendancy, right? Isn't that why?
That is the explanation why, yeah.
These all seem
But
reasonable to me.
these ones don't bother me as much as like the Olar Ethel getting murked by Gessler. Sorry, not Gessler, Gruntle earlier. Or other things that happened, but yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, like, I mean, this all came from RPGs, right? And some RPGs have exploding dice, so it's just like Gruntle rolled like a 4 and 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 a 4, and he
I
was able.
yeah. I think that the contrast here is, or say the tension here is the fact that D&D is fundamentally a power fantasy, and a lot of what is written here is fundamentally anti-power fantasy. Like the Chain of Dogs is like kind of an anti-power fantasy, right? A lot of the like when the Malazans are just getting wrecked by the Naruk, that's kind of like an anti-power fantasy. Stuff like that. And then it contrasts with these like obvious moments of, oh, this is derived from power fantasy, so it kind of feels out of place next to each other for me.
Want to talk about Hedge and Fiddler?
Yeah,
Sure.
they hugged. Isn't that cute?
And Hedge stayed.
I really, really like the acknowledgement of like what Fiddler is going through and Hedge like finally seeming to understand. That was really nice. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that Hedge did not die again.
And the coin. You gotta give the
Even though
coin back.
he tried to kill himself again.
Tried to kill. It was a dud. Cosmic intervention.
Yeah.
Maybe the errant was there.
Is that a
Erastus
20
is
or
like,
a 1? Did he roll a
oh,
20 or did he
yeah.
roll a 1?
Good question.
Yeah. I like
The
that
uh
they
the,
got
the coin scene, I really like that, and I really enjoyed that Hedge stayed around even though he was given the choice to join the Bridge Burners. He's like, I could stay
Mhm.
around for a few years. Would you like that? And Fiddler's just
Fiddler's
like,
like, yes.
Yes.
And Fiddler gets to play his fiddle for
Yeah.
his life now.
for Corla,
Corlat.
Corlat. Yeah, that was a
Oh,
beautiful
Yeah.
scene.
that scene, yeah. That was a really beautiful scene, yeah.
But then he also basically implies that the sad fiddling that can be heard coming from Smiley's is him.
Yes.
It's happy
In the
sometimes.
huh?
It's happy sometimes.
Right, but he didn't he say that maybe that's all that gets out is the sad stuff?
Yeah, all that
Like
escapes
the
Smiley's.
yeah. So
Should we go to the epilogues now, or?
No. You can't move on without talking about the regulars and the saluting.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the regulars. What do you want to talk about?
Is that the coin scene you were talking about,
Yeah, that's the coin
Yep, the
Erikson?
scene.
coin
yeah,
pack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just the whole explanation and like the the way that that was done, like it was pretty cinematic. Like I could
Mhm.
see that scene. And the I did feel kind of annoyed where um the Marines and heavies, like it seemed like for some didn't feel like the regulars earned the um reciprocation of the salute, because they they stuck by them. They went through this whole freaking desert, this impossible desert. Yeah, they didn't have, Pale and Egatan and all that, but this is their version of it, right? And like
Um,
what?
I I think the regulars are meant to be the reader stand-ins.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So,
as a reader, you're not participating. You're just kind of watching what's going on.
uh-huh.
The regulars are kept deliberately faceless for the most part. When Tavor is doing their inspiring speech, he's like, "I can't even see your faces behind your helmets. I can't see you." Um, they're just kind of following along. They're refusing to give up, like the readers. They're just kind of
I
sticking
see.
around. Yeah. Um, so, d- does the reader deserve any respect for sticking around? I guess Steve might think so here. But yeah, like it's not like we're doing anything heroic by reading the series,
I
or
mean, to me,
we wouldn't
this
think
is a
so. But
feat.
yeah, exactly. It does take a lot to read these books and really grapple with the themes here. Um, so I think that's Steve kind of saluting us in a way.
It's a really
I
interesting
guess
metaphor,
so.
and I do like it. But in real life, like a bunch of the regulars died. So, or not
Yeah,
in
they're
real life,
almost all
but in
dead.
the
Yeah,
real life of the series, like
Yeah.
tons of them have
there's
died
like
along the
500
way.
left. Yeah,
So like they have gone through a lot more than the readers have in that sense.
by the end, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know.
I
Um,
do like that interpretation that they're the stand-in for the reader. I think it was just like, how could you still think that they didn't deserve any acknowledgement,
Mhm.
from you? That
Uh,
was the thought.
well, I think
Bit of resentment, probably
the
because the
character
heavies
who
and the Marines
most
did so much.
sticks to that assessment and doesn't give it up is Blistig, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. He doesn't give them any credit
but
basically until the end.
Fiddler had to have, like, somebody had to give him a little talking to.
Yeah.
It was Hedge, yeah.
Isn't that
Yeah.
just because he's uncomfortable with emotional gestures like this, though? Isn't that what's really underneath it? And it's not that they really didn't think that they deserved to have it
Here,
reciprocated.
let me read it. Us soldiers only got one kind of coin. This is in italics, so it's a little in his head. Us soldiers only got one kind of coin worth anything, and it's called respect. And we hoard it. We hide it away, and there ain't nobody who'd call us generous. Easy spenders we're not, but there's something feels worse than having to give up a coin. It's when somebody steps up and tosses one back at us. We get antsy, we look away, and part of us feels like breaking inside, and we get down on ourselves, and outsiders don't understand that. They think we should smile and wave or stand proud, but we don't want to do anything of the sort. And when we're made to, it's because of all the friends we left behind on all those battlefields, because we know that they're the ones deserving of all that respect.
Hmm.
Right. So the main thing they're uncomfortable with is that they're being acknowledged. They're the ones being acknowledged, and that's why they don't
Yes,
want to
that part I
reciprocate
get,
it.
right? Because they're the survivors, right? And
Mhm.
so many people have died before them. But the fact that to do it back to the others, right? Like you it shouldn't be it
But that's the
shouldn't be
thing. Like
resentment.
when they're both soldiers, they're doing it to each other, and they know how the other one feels about the exact same thing. And it's kind of a complicated feeling.
And also doing it back is in a way like an acknowledgement that the coin that you don't want to be tossed to you has been tossed to you.
And you're
So
tossing
it's
the
like
coin.
Yeah,
uncomfortable,
but then you're tossing it
right?
back. That's the point.
Right. But tossing it back like acknowledges the first toss. Like it's like
Yeah.
accepting the thing that you're uncomfortable with in the first place. You see what I'm saying? And doing it, and like Kieran said, doing it to somebody else.
Mhm.
But even before the consideration of doing it to somebody else, it's like you're like acknowledging the thing you're uncomfortable with as well. Like
Yeah.
it's
If it wasn't difficult to do, it wouldn't mean anything.
right.
Sure.
Um,
Yes.
just
Um
going back to my metaphor for a second, I think this makes Blistig like a literary critic, who's or like a publisher or whatever. It's like no one's gonna read this garbage. Who cares? What like people
Uh,
aren't gonna read this.
uh-huh.
Oh
so
boy, were you wrong, Mister Publisher. who refused Gardens of the Moon 3 times.
Right. And then they refused to put it in America because Americans are too stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, give
So
people credit. They'll follow along sometimes.
so I actually only had one quote from the entire thing, and I missed it because it was supposed to be in chapter
Give
23.
it to us now.
Yeah. Okay. So I really liked this. It's the viewpoint is I believe it's Bryce's viewpoint. He's thinking about because he's thinking about Queen of Brastel and he's thinking about Tahol and if only like Tahol and Abrastel's husband could witness this. And it says, some futures hold such promise as to convince you they can be nothing more than dreams, delusions built on wishful thoughts. You walk the steps of your life, and always that dream beckons, that dream waits. You don't know if it can ever be made real. You don't know that even should you somehow stumble upon it, you won't find it less than it was, less than it could have been. If only you could have kept that distance, kept it just outside at arm's reach, forever shining, forever unsullied by the all too real flaws of your own making. And I love that. Uh, It's it it says a lot about um idealized futures, love.
Mm.
I'm sure it says something about Steve like envisioning writing the end of this series, and you know the difficulty of like making that idealized dream something real that would have flaws, things like that. I don't know.
See also the green light from The Great Gatsby.
I hated that. Sorry. I just that's a trigger. I
It
don't like
represents
the Great Gatsby.
money.
The green light, yeah, absolutely. Green.
Epilogues?
Yeah, let's go to the epilogues. Epilogues. The dead are buried. Crocus and Apsalar reunite. Fiddler thinks better of warning a young boy away from war.
Dogs always make me cry. So thanks for that, dogs. I'm glad that
Yeah.
Hood taking care of him.
Oh yeah, we also get the happy ending for Eten, Story, Stavi, Absi,
Urinos and his son.
Udanas. Yeah, Udanas is like, my hands are they got so cold, and now they're forever ruined. He seems to have really mellowed it out though. He's a lot less mopey. Got through
You
that
made a
phase of
reference to his baby mama.
Yeah, he seems to have kind of uh dealt with his trauma there, maybe a little bit. Good for him.
I just noticed that which you guys probably noticed this like already, but I just realized that Fiddler and that boy's conversation mirrors Whiskey Jack's
Janos and Whiskey
conversation with
Jack, yeah.
Janos at the beginning
Yep.
of Gardens.
And the weather vane at the
Yep,
end,
Yep.
gets
Weatherburn.
stuck.
Oh, that's so
It
good.
jams. It's not going to turn anymore.
That was beautiful.
Yep.
Very well done.
Good job, Steve.
And then
And
the
then
very
the
last
very
thing.
last poem, yeah. God,
Yeah.
what a great mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When in 5 years when I reread this, I'm gonna get a lot more out of it.
Because you'll be listening along to our conversations again.
I don't know if I will, but maybe.
Maybe using your eyes.
I have laid eyes on most of the series, but
Okay.
not all of it.
I can't believe we're here. This is like almost 3 years.
Yeah. These have been really great conversations. These have been my
Yeah.
favorite conversations I've ever had about books.
Yes. I'm not committing to another big series that requires 30-hour long conversations for a long time though. But Panda, can you remind me, is this the first big epic fantasy series you've read?
Yeah, I would consider it like at this length, yeah.
So like you just like really went right into the deep end.
Yeah,
I mean,
a bit.
I've been like training for this for like 15 years, and like you're just like, oh, my first time is gonna be this masterpiece, like this giant set of 10 books. It's so
I
crazy.
mean, I would say it's not completely going in cold. Like, I do read fantasy quite a bit. So the fantasy elements are not like novel. Um, some of the creative ways he does it is new. Um, but also having like studied classical works, and when I say classical, like ancient classics.
Like the
Um,
Odyssey, the Iliad.
yeah, Odyssey, but also just like the name escapes me right now. But
Beowulf.
like, I actually haven't studied Beowulf or read it. But there's like the natural history by some Greek name, don't remember. Um, so just things like
Herodotus?
that kind of help.
That's
And
what I was
I
thinking.
love Virgil, Herodotus, yeah.
Have you read
So
Dante?
no, but like in my political science classes, a lot of times we would be harkening back to like ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and reading the text from there, and that a lot of this was similar in that. Um, that begs the question: how often do you think about the Roman Empire? Anyway,
I
um,
didn't say it.
So that's interesting. So in a way, you were more prepared than I was because like, I read like all the stuff that was derivative of Tolkien and like, I've
uh,
read a bunch of big epic fantasy series, but I haven't read as much of the classical text that Erikson was trying to bring epic fantasy kind of back to
mhm.
with this. So your
Yeah,
classical
I guess
training
kind
might have
of.
better prepared you for Malazan than my modern epic fantasy.
I
I
think
think that's
ultimately
true. Yeah.
ultimately what it comes down to is analytical reading, right? And this series, more than any like fictional series that I've read, required a lot more analytical reading, um, which I think this is something that, when somebody is looking for a fun read, this is not what I would recommend to them. No matter
Correct.
how much I love this series,
Hmm.
that is not what I would recommend.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. If the fun's allowed to be dark, it would be Joe Abercrombie. But if not, I don't. It wouldn't be, and probably
Yeah.
anything like this, really.
I have a lot of fun reading this series.
Yeah,
There's a lot
but
of
it's
fun, but it's not like a light fun kind of
No, no,
It's not a fun
absolutely
like,
not.
read. And I
yeah.
would say,
it's
like, if I
it's
read
not
the
an
series.
effortless read either. Which
Right,
I think when you say a fun read, that's what I think of. Like when I read Abercrombie, the pages turn themselves. I don't have to like with Malazan.
right.
I'm like, let me read that paragraph again.
Yeah.
Like, it's like
Well, and the thing is, like, if I read this series by myself, I would not have enjoyed it nearly as much
Hmm.
as
I agree.
having these discussions. So,
We love you too.
oh, thanks. You
Yeah.
want some?
I'm very glad that you read it along with us, Panda, and
Thank you.
obviously Janath as well.
You want some
It's
listener questions? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yes, we can go with the listener questions. That's fine. I didn't have anything really interesting to say.
Should we separate them into ones that we should talk about like on our wrap up episode and the ones we should talk about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we should. Okay, so we did get quite a few listener questions. But yes, some of these would be best suited for our series wrap up discussion. So we talked about this one a little bit earlier. Does the ending of the series and the rest of it refute Karsa's thoughts here, a civilization? Da, 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 that quote. I think we discussed it fairly thoroughly.
Does
I
the
don't think
ending of
it.
the series refute it?
I don't think it
I
refutes
don't
it.
know. I
No,
think
it
it leaves
doesn't.
it ambiguous, and Steve acknowledges a lot of the horrors of humanity, but he also points out, I think, Karsa's blind spots as well. I
Yeah,
think he shows that Karsa isn't giving people enough credit.
I agree.
I think Karsa's thoughts here are incomplete.
Yes,
Can
and
you read the quote just for context?
mhm.
Sure. The quote says, "A civilization was the means by which too many people could live together despite their mutual hatred. In those moments where love and community burgeoned forth, the cynics descended like vultures eager to feed, and the skies soured, and the moment died away."
So
So
what Ash said, but cities still suck.
and a little bit of setup for Witness. So the name of the first Witness book is "The God Is Not Willing." The God can refer to many gods, but it is the Witness series that's associated strongly with one character.
Oh
Um,
dear. Okay, I see
Karsa's
where that's going.
Karsa's thoughts have evolved a lot since the ending of this series.
Okay, got it.
So
Are you
there is
sure?
more evolution.
How are we supposed to know?
Yeah, he doesn't show up in the book.
Because he's not willing.
He's not will. Yeah, he doesn't want to. He's a diva.
So Lady Sweden asks a question I believe is specifically for the Crippled God. Which of the climaxes was your favorite and why? And she said there were many good ones to choose from, but I'm torn between the sappers and Perron's host and the laughter in the Crippled God fight. You want to go?
So what climax we talk about? We talk about the shake, the spire. I guess she counted the sappers part. Uh, the the marines around the crippled god.
And then the
Anything else?
regulars, the
Um,
regulars fighting the Clancy.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
I
the
think
Yeah.
we can. I think we can choose like our favorite moment from all these. So for my favorite moment is, oh Ganos, I lost her.
Mm,
That for me is the emotional climax of the book.
I think I agree.
So
Yeah,
It's just so good.
I do agree, but I think my favorite is the stuff with Gessler, Bent, Roach, Hood, and the Chagall assassin.
Mm. Oh,
I go to tears
um,
when Kessler kills himself.
huh? Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, for the
Um,
dog.
um, uh, almost tied with divorcing Oganos, I lost her. Is Erinict saying, "Oh no, you don't," to Briss.
That
That's
was really good.
Okay, if I have to be honest, it's probably Oganos I lost her. But the Marines on the hill was just incredible. And like have a Fiddler and Crippled Gods discussions. I love their little back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So real quick, I know in that scene with the Erenict, I did criticize I said the whole lot of sugar for nickel thing, but the best line in that scene that made it hit home for me was from one of those characters that I can't distinguish between. Uh, when she said like something like about like not no no like not not for a love like this like male no you can't
I think it was
you
faint.
can't yeah, faint, yeah, okay. I can't remember the line, but it was really good, and that was, like, what made me like, "Oh, I care about their relationship," like,
I
a
love
lot.
Ederic and
Yeah.
Briss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
Okay.
let's not forget Tehil showing up in a boat, even though he doesn't appear on stage.
You didn't
Yeah.
answer. Oh, Ganos.
Yeah, I think that would have to be it. Like that whole part, especially when he opens a portal and then Mathic uh and that
Mathic,
part of
his
the army
horse.
comes through. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Okay. Compassion on display. Which scene got you the hardest? Hmm.
In terms of compassion,
I'll go with what I said last time. Fiddler and the Crippled God, like just talking to each other. And he's like, "How
I
can you do
will.
Yeah.
this for me?" He's like, "I don't know."
Was there more
I
than
will.
that? Like,
I will
Well,
say
I think that's
the.
kind of like
Mhm.
the meeting point of like everything that the Bone Hunters had gone to
yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
Um.
I guess the whole them saving the Crippled God is just the best.
So the
But
whole ending part.
that point is what I would put at Fiddler and the Crippled God talking to each other about it, and the Crippled God be like, "Why are you doing this for me?"
Yeah.
It's like, I
The
don't know.
the compassion scene that gets me the most is it's not in this section that we covered here. It's in book 6, I think it is. When they're explaining what Tavor is doing. When like Ruth and Ruth and Good is explaining it to Kindly, and it's like she is the one
Oh,
that's willing to take on this burden, and she's willing to take on it all. And you said that's not enough. And then it's
yeah.
like you see what Tavor has been doing, and
Oh, if we're not counting book 7, then I'm going to have to go with the children showing up and taking
mm,
care of them. Like
Yeah, I think
that's
this is for the whole book,
yeah. Well,
the
then
whole
that's
entirety of
definitely
the
my
Crippled God.
answer. Absolutely my answer.
I think the part that I don't know if this really qualifies as compassion because there is some like other motivation, but I think I'm gonna say that it counts is Tavor basically telling Blistic why
mhm,
um like why he's still alive and like
I
what
think it
his
counts.
purpose is.
I think it counts. That's a great
Because
scene.
that one, like the Crippled God and everything, I get it. That one's like expected, but the Ballistic one was unexpected.
Tavor sees.
Yeah.
Tavor cares.
How about the headcanon where Stormy saves Sin as they're falling?
Theoretically, that would have been great.
That would have been the best one in the book.
Okay, so
Wait,
last
Janath, did you
question.
answer?
Oh, sorry.
Well, I copped out by agreeing with you about the crippled god
Oh, okay.
and
Well, I changed my answer.
Fiddler talking, and then you changed your answer to what I almost want to change my answer to. So I'm just a horrible chameleon, and I can't form my own opinion.
I'll add another one for you then. Tavor addressing the regulars.
Yeah,
That one's
okay, that
great.
one's really good too.
Look, there's a lot of good scenes.
It's a lot of
Really
like
good scenes.
I feel like I have like spent half my time the past for the past like since Told the Hounds just kind of complaining about things that I find annoying.
Yeah.
But I should clarify, these books are all amazing in my eyes.
They are.
Okay, I'll add more. So with the part where they play the viol or the fiddler plays music so that Corlat and Whiskey Jack can have their moment. Like they're like, we're gonna do this whether you want it or not. So
Wait, let me read it. When she reached the road and saw her beloved standing on the hill before her, Corlat broke into a run.
Mm-hmm.
Just so simple and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. I honestly really liked the scene where the bridge burners were all about to murder Corlat for
Yes.
giving up
What are
his
you
throne.
doing?
Oh, I
I thought he
sorry,
gave up
listeners.
on me. He walked away.
I've been remiss in my duties. I need to bring up I need to bring up the Namander moment.
Oh dear.
Like they pop out of the portal and immediately get possessed by the storm.
Wait, I missed
Classic
that.
Namander shows up only to do nothing. What a nerd.
I
I hate you
completely
so
missed
much.
that, honestly.
Yeah,
I
like
think that's the
Apsalar
point.
like pops through is like, oh, I made a mistake, and then like Namander and Co are just like swept up in the storm.
Oh
Like,
my god.
yeah,
I not this is not a compassion moment, but I also liked Kalam and Apsalara flirting with each other.
yeah. Did Kalam and Nala have a falling out, or
No.
okay, he's just flirting. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, he flirted with her, but he also like kind of rejected her, so it's not like he was like
yeah,
pursuing her.
yeah. That was just
All right,
it. Just left me wondering.
last
No, I
question.
would have did the same thing and I went back and reread it and like the last thing he says about Manali is like, hey, I'm not jealous.
Ready for the last question?
Mm.
hmm
What did you think of Tool's journey from undead living, undead back to living? This is from Gandabacha.
That's rough, buddy.
Yeah.
It,
Tool is one of my favorite characters, and I'm just happy. It was quite the roller coaster, and I'm very very happy that I had a happy ending. And for Talk too, I know that wasn't part of the question, but Talk, you got to be part of the Bridge Burners.
And he
Yeah.
got to reconcile with his friend.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in favor of it. I liked like as the moments are going on. I liked all of them, but it feels like a tiny bit off to me, but not in a way that I'm gonna spend any time complaining about it. I'm generally pretty happy about it.
it's kind of how I feel about it.
I know this wasn't part of the. Sorry, Panda. You should probably answer yours.
Oh, I mean, I liked it. So
Okay.
I like that he got a good ending finally.
I would hate myself if I didn't mention this, but the thing that makes me cry more than anything in this series, next to Beak and Harlow, is the ending of Mappo and Ikariam, and the last lines of the book of Ikariam looking at the pot shirts. Hey, it's with pot shirts, and pot
Mhm.
shirts bring his memory back, which I think is wonderful. At least that's how I interpret it, at least, is saying that he thinks he remembered something. Thanks for remembering his.
Yeah.
hmm I think he's probably specifically remembering the first moment Mappo came up to him and it started helping him collect the pot shirts.
Yeah. I choose to think it's that. Yes.
hmm And so I don't know if this is ever made explicit, but as far as I can tell, right, like Ikari never goes into a rage again after Bone Hunters. I think personally that his connection to chaos was closed by the Aerosol. She healed him of that.
Mm.
And then his memory was fixed once he like, and his memory is largely fixed from then on. And he started like building himself up from that point.
I always thought that he was connection with chaos was channeled through his device, which created the new Warrens.
That might be a part of it too. Yeah, yeah, I like that. I think the aerosol touching him and putting him to sleep was a
Yeah, I
crucial
think
moment
I
for him.
agree.
Yeah,
Finding
that
a
like
Curious
healed
is
something
also
that was
helpful.
broken with him. Yeah. Yes. And we'll see more of that stuff later.
Does
But
that mean that your theory is that all these people like treating him like a pawn in this book, it was like never gonna work? Like he
I
could
think
have
so.
never been reactivated?
Yeah.
I agree.
Wow.
I mean, wouldn't that be perfect? That'd be so in keeping with the Fork of Sales, like dastardly plans getting foiled by them being stupid.
That would also mean that like Mappo's quest was completely it like
Not
futile
needed.
from the beginning.
Well, he like the real reason for his quest is he wants to see his friend again, right? He wants to
I mean,
protect him and save him.
that's why I was invested. Like, come on,
But
get back to him.
yeah, I don't think that Mappa was saving the world.
But
Well,
yeah.
it didn't work out anyway, so
Yeah, yeah, he just kind of gets killed. So
Yeah. I do have an idea that I want to pitch to Erickson when we talk to him. So, there's this whole, we've already had this discussion about adaptations and stuff, but uh, it would be really cool if there was a conceptual album. And I think people have done this where they like make music inspired by Malazan, but people also make fan art inspired by Malazan. If you combine the two, so the reason why I bring this up is because I was at a symphony concert where they did video game music, and they showed images of these games that they were playing music from, and it just when I was sitting there, I was like, it would be so cool if we could see this kind of concert for Malazan, where whether it's like stills of fan art or like, animated or even live action kind of things, but like those scenes playing on a screen as the symphony is playing music for the scene. And then you think about what kinds of scenes would you want to see and experience in that kind of concert. And like, there would be a lot of scenes from this book, but also like the beak scene, right?
Mhm.
Even like small moments like first meetings, like when um, you first meet, like Tool or Talk, all of these things. So
Hell
he doesn't
yeah,
need a whole movie, or
hell yeah.
TV show. He could just have a conceptual concert.
Fiddler playing while Kalam slaughters claw members.
have you listened to the unofficial Malazan soundtrack or whatever?
No.
There's several symphonic pieces. There's like one about the bridge burners, one about Coltane, one about Beak, and
Okay.
I should listen to
uh
that. think
and
I've
I
heard
think
Beak.
the one about the bridge burners, it's I think about I think it's inclusive. I mean, there's no words, but I think it's inclusive of this book because the
Oh,
picture
okay.
is of like the picture looks like it's either a fiddler during this book or during Egaton.
Okay.
One of those.
Mm.
Like it's like a very bleak picture of Fiddler.
There's also Kaladin Brood, the metal band.
I'm not as much of a metal fan, but I could give it a try.
There's also a metal band called Toblakai.
Oh, really?
That's hilarious. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that metal exists, and I appreciate the people who do metal, but I do not like it. So do we have final thoughts on the Crippled God? Because we've been going for 3.5 hours now.
Yes. Hallelujah. We made it to the end. And
Hallelujah.
I would say this was a successful read through. Whether or not people actually enjoy our conversations, I enjoyed them. And I guess the last thing I'll say as we wrap up is if you are here listening to this, thank you. Um, thank you to everybody, whether you listen or just like engage with us in comments, whether in Discord or in like other platforms. Um, Thank you for engaging with us. And honestly, like this whole journey is it's a highlight of my life. Like it will be something that I remember very fondly. And thank you to the three of you for allowing me to join you on this. So yeah.
I mean, I'm the one that like just came in at the last minute and was like, "Can I join you guys? I know you're starting
I'm
this."
so glad you did.
Yeah.
Like I can't even think about like us doing this without you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, "I'm just crashing these people's party," but the timing was just too fortuitous because I hated this series so much before that moment, and like I realized like right when you guys were about to start that I actually loved it, and I was just like almost done with book 2, and I was like, "This is some of the best stuff I've ever read. How did I ever hate this? They're
Yeah.
starting a podcast. Let's do it." Like, like it was just too well timed to not try to get in on it.
You had a very,
Yeah.
very valuable perspective of somebody like that, also a Marxist.
Yeah, giving the radical perspective. Yeah, I'm
I've
very glad you
toned that
joined.
down a lot, by the
I remember back just before we are gonna start like arguing with you in the Erikson channel, like how this is not grim dark, man. And we're going back and forth, and yeah, it was
Well, those
great,
conversations were like part of what got me to go back to the series
excellent.
again.
I'm very happy
Because
about
like
that.
part of why I hated it was because I felt like I was reading because the Chain of Dogs, I felt like I was reading like if you took Grimdark, darker than Game of Thrones, and sucked all the levity out of it. And I
Mm.
know that's not what it's like. Like, actually, even in the Chain of Dogs, there's some of the best moments
Mhm.
of levity in the entire series, but
Mhm.
that's how it felt. Like when I read it the first time, I was just like, I don't care about these characters. They're all miserable. They're all going to die. They failed in their quest. Like, why am I reading this? What is the point? Like, why do I want to be this miserable? And I like just didn't get it. And on a reread, it like just clicked so much more. Like I just when I read The Chain of Dogs, like my epic fantasy knowledge was like Tolkien and Wheel of Time, and I just was not cut out for this kind of thing yet. Like I needed to go through the school of grimdark and like morally gray fantasy and even Sanderson, even though I don't really like that as much anymore. Like I needed to go through all that stuff before I was ready to like actually see what Erikson was doing. Because like just coming off of Wheel of Time, Game of Thrones, and Tolkien, it just wasn't enough. Like I was
Mm.
too young. I was too young and too unexperienced as a reader and like not analytical enough. So, you know, why isn't this book thinking for me?
Mhm.
Yeah. To offer my final thoughts, I'm immensely grateful to everyone that's listened and engaged, and uh, AP and Steve for giving us so much of their time and being so generous with in the conversations. But most of all, obviously, to you guys, as I said, these are the best conversations about books I've ever had. Um, the journey has been amazing to go on with you guys. I feel like I definitely got a lot more out of the series than I did initially, and definitely since we got to hash all these things out with each other. Um,
And we do
Obviously,
disagree quite a bit.
we do
So
disagree. They're really fun disagreements, I think.
we do
Um,
have heated moments.
yeah, yeah, we do absolutely, and I'm very grateful for those as well. I like getting the different perspectives. I loved getting challenged, um, getting my viewpoints altered, even if it's retrospectively when I'm thinking on a conversation later and like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point. I should adjust for that. Um, and yeah, like it's been nothing like nothing else. This is something I'll look back on with much fondness, even if we do other series and stuff. Obviously, it's not going to be what this was. This was just something very special, I think. So
Yeah.
Thank you to you guys. Thank you to the fans. Thank you to the critics sometimes. Obviously, what these conversations are is not an in-depth critical analysis of the series. Although I like to think that we do have some of that. Mostly this is a group of friends reading a group of people who weren't friends before
Yeah.
becoming friends as they read a series together
Yeah.
and really digging into it. Maybe the podcast will make some more critical analysis video episodes at some point. I would kind of like to do that and like get into like the whatever topic that we get into. But
I'd be
for
there
what
for
this
you
was.
to talk to somebody because I'm not smart enough to do that.
For what this was, and I don't wish it was something else. For what this was, I really, really loved it. So that's my piece.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, go
If
ahead.
you want to.
I do have
Um,
more to say because I was kind of just responding to Panda and not actually giving my full final thoughts, but you can go first.
Um, I'll just say that I'm immensely grateful to the three of you. And I've said many times that this book has shaped my life more than any other work of fiction, really any other work of art. And I'd say that our discussions have done it just as much. I've grown a lot as a person, and I've learned so much just from us talking and reading and learning more. And I'm thankful very much to our listeners a lot. I'm very, very thankful to meet Steve. And I think I told him the first time we met, like, I wanted to make this podcast so I could talk to you. And so, if we stopped after that, I'd still have been happy. But just thank you all. We'll do more stuff sometime.
Mhm.
But yeah, this is kind of the end, and I'm kind of sad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very bittersweet because it's been a long
Yeah.
time. But
Yeah. Well, we should keep it going, but just not at this pace where half of my 2 weeks in between episodes is reading for the podcast, and it's like almost all the time for
I want
years.
to do ice and I
Uh,
want to do Kark. I'm just not sure how much Panda and Janath can join us for those.
yeah.
I
I'm down
can,
for
but
some.
I can, but I just need it like more spaced out and
So,
not
so
as like a
mhm.
marathon. Yeah.
how about
It
the
took us
next?
3 years.
It
How
did
about
because of the huge break in the middle, but the
Yeah.
times where we were really going,
Yeah.
Yeah,
was
our first year
a lot.
was pretty quick.
we can ease back into it with the novellas?
Yeah.
Really? I'm up for it. I'm up for it.
Hell yeah, we do it super slow.
Why
So
won't the listeners tell us what they want next if they want anything?
Oh
Oh,
yeah, do
yeah,
that.
that too.
yeah, I really appreciate you guys for doing this with me, and the thing about like people, because the four of us becoming friends as we read the series is like, yeah, that really hits. That lands. But also just like if it wasn't for the Legendarium Discord, I would have never given, or I probably would not have given the series another chance. At least not when I did. But if it wasn't for this, I don't know that this would have become my favorite series, and I certainly wouldn't have read it all in publication order for the most part. I would have just sped through the 10 books and like finished them very quickly without reading them as closely as I did, and like probably reread them very quickly after that because I would have missed like a million things and known it. But like doing like all like 20 something odd books, that only happened because of the podcast, because I was like trying to like pace with the podcast and stuff. And so like, I don't know, like whew.
I'm so
Uh,
impressed.
I
Like,
don't, yeah.
I don't know how you did it.
I mean, and before this podcast series, my favorite author was Brandon Sanderson, and I was trying to do that with the Cosmere, and I'm glad I did it with this instead. And I have read probably way more Cosmere novels than I ever should have, but
Yeah,
but
let's really
yeah.
end on some shots across the bow at the
Oh
Cosmere
no.
fans.
Sorry. I'm sorry. That's just my personal taste. I understand they are well written for what they are. I agree with AP on that.
I
Is
mean,
that they do what they do
Oh yeah.
well.
yeah, I could join in, but I think I've bashed him enough on the podcast, so I should really
Do you
stop.
want me to throw in some Terry Pratchett bash? No, I'm just kidding. Um, I'm kidding.
But yeah, I don't know. So like this podcast definitely like I'm sure it would have been a favorite, but it it became like something way more central to me, and I think it's because of this podcast.
Mhm.
So
And yeah, we definitely made mistakes along the way. We didn't talk about some things that we probably should have, and we probably talked about some things that too much. I'm definitely guilty of that, but I think it's all part of the process. I wouldn't change. I wouldn't go back and change these things. I understand why Steve is like, I'm never going to rewrite Gardens of the Moon.
but bucket list is to get uh Cam on sometime, and then
Absolutely.
like
I'm down.
extra special bucket list is like Cam, Steve, and AP, and like I
Mhm.
mean
Maybe in person someday.
yeah.
Malazan Con, anyone?
Now, that does sound good to me.
God, a Malazan Khan would be amazing. So for full spoiler stuff, for any listeners who have made it this far and Panda, there's some good stuff on AP's channel. He talks about how to adapt the series to television and how you could uh have Tavor be one of the main viewpoint characters in a TV
Ah,
show from the beginning instead of bringing her in so late.
okay.
Like you could like follow her during the events of Gardens more, things
Yeah,
like that. There's some cool stuff out there. So like
interesting.
that and Ruth on Bad are like, and I want to watch the ones that you were talking about, Ash, where he like recontextualizes the series through the lens of Cam and Sod being the narrator. Uh, I think I've seen some of one of those, but I want to go through and actually watch.
AP, of
Any
course, very smart man.
yeah. Any
Yeah.
other recommendations for Panda and I for full spoilers crap?
Nipple Rock hasn't.
Smileys.
He hasn't updated in a long time. Oh yeah, Smiley's
Mhm.
good too. We're covering Karkin's show.
Smileys actually has a conversation with Niflrog where they do hot takes while drunk.
Oh,
That's cool.
sounds fun.
Yeah.
Um, oh, and if you want, for some reason, Panda, as if you haven't listened to me talk about the series enough, to watch the videos that weren't well received about my thoughts right after I finished the Crippled God, now you can actually watch those and they won't spoil the series for you. But I don't recommend them as whole full-throatedly as I recommend the Ruth on Bad and AP Canavan stuff. It
Sure.
was just like me venting basically. And uh yeah.
Shall we say goodbye?
Wrap
Oof.
us up.
Yeah, we probably should.
It's like almost 1 a.m. for
Uh,
you two.
Yeah.
It
I
sure
want to go to
is.
bed.
Lady Ash is trying not to listen too hard as she makes her way through the beginning of Dead House Gates now.
wow.
That's where
Yeah.
Whitney and I are too. We
Hell
just
yeah.
read the council scene where
That's
Coltane and Bolt.
something. Sorry.
Oh,
No. That's something that I wanted to call out is that there have recently been so many more people that either have started the series for the first time or are rereading the series. And it's really, really fun seeing all their thoughts in the Discord channel on the Legendarium. So if there are other people who are thinking of, I don't know, maybe not so soon, but soonish, of restarting the series, feel free to join in.
hmm And I should give a shout out to r/Malazan. That's Reddit has a lot of bad in it. I think r/Malazan is a great place of good.
I agree.
Especially considering their mod team. Uh, Obviously, I have a real soft spot for Mora, and she does a great job.
Nice.
So, yeah, check them out as well. But obviously, come to the Discord because that's where I talk.
Well, that concludes this episode. I'm Hurinfan. Goodbye.
bye.
Bye.
Now these ashes have grown cold. We open the old book. These oil-stained pages recount the tales of the fallen. A frayed empire, words without warmth. The hearth has ebbed. Its gleam and life's spark are but memories against dimming eyes. What cast my mind, what hue my thoughts as I open the book of the fallen and breathe deep the scent of history. Listen, then, to these words carried on that breath. These tales are the tales of us all, again, yet again. We are history relived, and that is all. Without end, that is all. My favorite Star Trek movie is the motion picture, and that movie is slow and boring, and it is an awesome movie. Uh,
That was your
Kieran's
favorite?
face.
I
huh?
mean, it's one of the better Star Trek movies. That's not saying much, but like, really, the motion
Wow.
picture.
It's no
I
Into
mean, I think
Darkness.
I hate you so
I
much.
think objectively the best one is The Voyage Home, but
Which one's so good?
yeah, my favorite, not the best. My favorite is the key word there is the motion picture.
I mean,
I see.
I'm a motion picture like advocate. I think it's quite good. It just needs like 20 minutes cut out of it.